Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Dearborn Public Schools special meeting. It's April 16th, and it's 6:08. We're going to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Bazzi. Here. Trustee D'Ambrosio. Here. Trustee Mosip.
Present.
Trustee Pelichkov.
Here.
Trustee Suboh.
Here, sorry.
Trustee Suboh.
Here.
Okay, good. Trustee Zahar. Here. President Al-Jahmi.
Here.
The next item is Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is a discussion. Tonight we have two superintendent interviews. The first one is with Dr. Ali Hamka, from Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources at Walled Lake Consolidated School.
All right. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Dearborn Public Schools, I would like to welcome Dr. Ali Hamka to this interview for the position of Superintendent. Dr. Hamka is Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources for Walled Lake Consolidated School. I will take a few minutes to briefly describe our format. The interview will take up to 90 minutes. Time will be kept on the monitor. There will be 22 questions from the board. Toward the end of the interview, time permitting, we will give you the opportunity to ask questions of the board and to make closing statements. We will let you know if time is becoming of an issue and there's a need to pick up the pace of the responses. Trustee Zahar will make that point if it does happen. For those present for the interview, we welcome and encourage your feedback. We have provided a QR code that will take you to the online feedback form with a link at the top of this form that will take you to an Arabic version. We will have a place for public comment on the agenda for this Saturday's meeting. Although the task of choosing our superintendent is the responsibility of the Board of Education as the elected representative of our community, we value and seriously consider the input of our stakeholder in this process. So in saying all that, I'll start with the first question, Dr. Hamka. The first question, while we have the opportunity to review your application material, audience members have not. Please briefly review your background and share what caused you to be interested in this position at this point in your career.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me today. Before I begin, I'd like to thank my family. I want to thank my wife, Layla, my father, and everybody here in my family who supported me along the way. My colleagues back there, and everyone from Walled Lake. Thank you so much.
Dr. Hamka, if you can get...
Oh, a little closer?
Yes, please.
All right.
Great, thank you.
All right. Is that too close? All right. Thank you. Is that better?
Yes.
Great, excellent. So I just want to thank my family and everybody who has inspired me to be here today. Appreciate it. So for the first question, I'll begin by sharing a little bit about my background. 23 years ago, I completed my bachelor's degree in education with a major in social studies and a minor in bilingual Arabic education. And I was so excited to find a job here in the Dearborn school system. And at the time, Dearborn wasn't hiring. And so as I was walking through Ford Field, I bumped into a senior teacher, a seasoned teacher here in the district, and I asked her, what should I do? Dearborn doesn't have an opening. I'm trying to find a job. What is your recommendation? She looked at me square in the eyes and she said, Ali, get out of Dearborn. Get out. Go see what's out there. You're young, you're energetic. Go see what's out there. And I want to be very frank with you as board. It hurt me when she said that. It hurt me because Dearborn Public School is a school district that inspired me to go into education. My teachers inspired me. I can name every single one and what they did. I want to be very frank with you. I wasn't an A student. I even wasn't a B student. I'll just stop right there. What I want you to know is that the teachers saw something in me that I did not see in myself, and that is my relentless work ethic. My teachers would say, Ali, you're the hardest working student in the classroom. And so I took that information and I took that seasoned teacher's advice and I started applying everywhere. My first job was a charter school here, not far from here, teaching Arabic bilingual education to students who were refugees from the Iraqi war. It was a great experience. I learned a lot about their culture and background. But I really wanted to go into the public school system. So I applied everywhere, from Clarkston to Monroe, from Huron Valley to L'Anse Creuse. And I was hired in Rochester Community Schools to teach at Stony Creek High School. It was a brand new building. In fact, it was so new that there was drywall dust on the whiteboard. And yes, we had whiteboards and not chalkboards. At that time, I was completing my master's degree in educational leadership, and I completed it. And my principal, Dan Hickey, said, Ali, I want you to take on some more responsibilities now that you have your degree. And that's what I did. I became the district diversity chairperson for Stony Creek. I take on PLC opportunities. I helped design the district or the building diversity show. And through that experience, I eventually became an assistant principal at Ahart Middle School, one of the largest middle schools in the state of Michigan, 1,200 students. I had the opportunity to transition students from 5th grade to 6th grade, and then from 8th grade to 9th grade. It's amazing how much change happens in their lives, and I happened to witness it. And that was a great experience, but I was still hungry and driven. I was hired in Birmingham Public Schools to be an assistant principal at Seaholm High School. Birmingham is one of the most affluent communities in the state of Michigan. I had the opportunity to work in a very competitive market. You know, there are so many private schools in that area. And so I understood the value of servant leadership. I knew what it meant to serve with high expectations. And then I was hired at Walled Lake Consolidated Schools as a high school building principal at Walled Lake Western. Walled Lake Western was an amazing experience. So much so, I had two amazing experiences. One, I had the opportunity to revitalize the culture and climate from a staff value and a staff morale standpoint. And I had the opportunity to revitalize the culture, the physical culture of the building. We renovated the entire building. I led a $90 million effort to put together a 21st century learning environment. And I hope I can speak to you more about that. At the same time, when I was a principal, I completed my central office certification degree. And I was still driven. I began my doctorates. 4 months before we moved into the new building, I was appointed to be Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. So I did not get a chance, after all that work, to lead at Walled Lake Western the renovated piece. And so it was a learning experience. I became Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. And during that time, I finished my doctorate's degree in educational and organizational leadership. I completed 2 research projects. The first one focused on AP courses. Basically, I conducted a process evaluation to see how students get into those AP classes, and why does the demographics in AP classes look significantly different than other courses. I've also finished a research project focusing on artificial intelligence in the classroom, a needs assessment evaluation about what teachers need to feel comfortable enough to use AI in the classroom. And so I've learned a lot in my experience. In human resources, in HR, I can tell you, the gift of being in the job, in education, we say it takes a village to raise a child. I think we can all agree on that. In HR, I have the opportunity to engage with every village. The paraprofessional village, the secretary village, the food village, the transportation village, the administrator village, the teacher village, the board village, the community village. So it's been a very humbling overall experience, and I'm very grateful for that. Now, the second part of your question is, why do I want to come to Dearborn? I think it's important that I convey that, yes, I'm inspired. Secondly, I am very attracted to the level of comprehensive opportunities you provide your students. I took woodshop for 4 years at Fortson, and I'm proud of that, all right? My daughter is a drum major at Crestwood High School. She plays the trombone, and she's the president of the drama club, and I'm proud of her. My son, he plays football, and over the course of this winter, we built an electric bike. It was such a great experience to engage with him. So I'm excited for the comprehensive nature. The bond that you're working on or that you're planning to work on at your researching is also something I'm excited about, as I've had the opportunity to engage with that kind of work twice, as a building principal as well as a cabinet member. And then save the best for last, and that's about teaching and learning. I've worked in 3 districts. There are always opportunities for growth and opportunities for development. I'll bring my experiences from the districts that I've worked in that focused on teaching and learning, focused on instructional practices, and ensured that MTSS processes were utilized efficiently and effectively, and that there was integration both vertically and horizontally. And so those are some of the reasons why I want to join you here in Dearborn. Thank you.
The next question, based on what you know about our district, what do you believe are the 2 or 3 most critical long-term priorities we must address? And how do your background and skills position you to lead that work?
Thank you. Obviously, I've had the opportunity to go through several data points, my school data, culture and climate surveys, and all those elements. I think the obvious one initially is the bond projects that we're working on. As you know, 21st century learning, we are 25% into the 21st century learning. We have a moral and ethical obligation. I have to ask myself and say, do the students of Dearborn deserve the best? And if so, then let's give them the best. A learning experience, engaging experience is important. And it's not just the bond itself, it's the process of how we get there, the transparency, the ensuring that we listen to our stakeholders, ensuring that we understand the empathy piece about the decision we decide to make, and to ensure that every student has an experience that's worldly and globally. That's important to me. And so in my experience as somebody who's worked in both bond worlds and in both roles in the bond, I believe that that is something that I can help you with, that I look forward to should the opportunity come. The second piece is the discussion around teaching and learning. In the posting, you've outlined that there's an achievement gap, and I appreciate that, because in every district that I've worked in, there was an achievement gap. All right? And it's important to recognize that there's nothing to be embarrassed about. We should be proud that we're working hard to develop our skills for our teachers, to utilize high-level strategies to support our students who are in need. All right? And the reality here is this. There are achievement gaps, right? And then there should be opportunities. And they call it an opportunity gap. So we understand that we may never be able to be perfect to close everything. But what we want to make sure is that we provide students with opportunities that fit their lifestyle so that they can be independent and so they be successful in life, whatever your definition of success is. So I believe teaching and learning is something that I can bring to the table and support. The third piece, I wondered whether I should say it. I went back and forth because I've studied the history and the trajectory of immigrant cities. And the longer the families of an immigrant city is in this country, the smaller the family is. Right? My mom came from 7, 8 children. I'm one of 6. I have 2 children. So thinking about enrollment and think about the long-term effect of enrollment, that is something that I am just wondering about. It's important that we think about that because the trends in the United States and the trends in Michigan are going down, all right? So it's something that we just have to keep an eye on and be aware of. And my experience in Walled Lake is that we've had declining enrollment, and so we had to make some adjustments. So those experiences are something that I'm thinking about, not maybe at this point as an urgency, but something we have to keep our eye on. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next question. Tell us about a time when you led through a crisis or significant change. What decision did you make? What was the outcome? And what did you learn that you would apply here? And always, if you need us to repeat, feel free to ask.
Sure. You said, just to be clear, you said a change, a crisis or a significant change, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a crisis or significant change.
Okay. I'm going to share a story with you about a change that I made to avert a potential crisis, if that's fair. It was my first year of being a principal, and I learned that one of my students was in the hospital. He apparently got attacked, and he was injured. And so, I had a great relationship with this student, and I was confident that I have great relationships with many students as a building principal, and that is the thing to do. So I went to the hospital just to check on him, right? And they did not allow me to go see him. They said, due to security reasons, we can't take you back to visit. And that, in my mind, raised a red flag. Why can't I see him? What's the issue? And so upon doing a thorough investigation, I learned that I had 2 other students that were with him when this incident took place. And when he was released, he wanted to come back to the building. And so what I did for the safety and security of our students, I changed his placement from being in-person learning to being online learning. And the reason why I did that is because the person who injured him and went after him is still at large. And the last thing I want to do as a building principal is to know those details and allow that situation to happen. By putting him online, I gave him the opportunity for him to be safe, the other students to be safe, and the entire learning environment at Walled Lake Western to be safe. And so, but that story is not over, because social media has an interesting story that is attached to it. Somebody who's related to him put out that I expelled him, which was not the truth, and that it was racially motivated, which was not the truth. That led to peaceful protests in the building, Channel 7 and Channel 4 coming in to make, to do news briefings, and it really challenged my leadership. What I learned about this entire experience is that safety and security is of utmost importance. Learning is, that's why we're in this business. But every child needs to go back home to their parents and their loved ones. And so the decision I made was to ensure that safety and security prevails. And so that's why I made this decision. And should I be provided the opportunity to come here, safety and security and forward thinking and doing our investigations thoroughly is something that is important. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Hamka, welcome.
Thank you.
Before I start, who's a trombone player? I played trombone in high school. Good job. It's the most important instrument in the entire orchestra. Also, on behalf of myself and behalf of Trustee Bazzi, sometimes I like to say great haircut.
Thank you.
I'm going to be asking you 4 questions about district relations.
Sure.
Okay, the first one is, please share with us how you have gone about building and maintaining successful relationships with all members of the school community. Specifically, share an example of how you built a productive relationship with a resistant stakeholder group.
Sure. Thank you. I pride myself on being visible, available, I'm intentional in my presence, and I'm approachable. And so what happens when I am out and about and I spend the least amount of time in my office? The magic is not in my office. The magic's in the classroom. The magic's in the building. And so what I've done over the course of my career is be visible and available. I attend many meetings, and I'm a very open and very casual, I'm open to getting to know people and having those conversations. And so in my interactions with people, I make sure that it's intentional, really focusing on building relationships, but also being authentic and real. I need people to understand that I'm here to serve their students. That's why I'm in this job, nothing else. My job is to ensure that students have a great relationship with the school, and we know that when there's a positive relationship between the school and the student and the families, our students tend to excel more. And so I do that by being visible and available. I also believe that when I say availability, I mean in a space where people feel comfortable getting vulnerable with me. It's not just shaking hands and kissing babies. It's shaking hands and going for a walk and allowing people to express themselves freely from a psychological standpoint. Because on the outside, everybody thinks that we can think that we're doing all right, but on the inside, we all have our struggles. And so that's the kind of relationship I have with my stakeholders, whether it's a parent, whether it's a business owner, whether it's a student or an employee. In addition to being visible and available in those unstructured environments with celebrations and such, whether they're football games or track events or whatever the case is, right, PTSA meetings, I'm very comfortable being physically available in uncomfortable environments. When things are not going well, I am comfortable being there because as a leader, I believe I thrive best in discomfort. And I want to be with the people. And I want to be with my students because they need someone to look up to and they need someone that can model for them. Our students, our staff, and the overall community. As for resistance groups, I've built a relationship, I built a reputation for myself in Walled Lake that I get the job done right. I am very disciplined. I have high expectations for myself. And so when a parent brings a concern to me or a stakeholder group is resistant, I ensure that I evaluate their concern to the nth degree. I had a stakeholder group that came to me and said, Ali, we want you to fire this coach. I don't know if that happens here, but that's what happened. Mm-hmm. And so I was taken back with the allegations. But I understood that that's the perception of the parent. And so I welcomed them to my office. I welcomed them one at a time. I didn't want too many people in my office at once. One at a time to evaluate specifically what their concerns were. And I promised them that I will do my job to make sure that I address this issue or get to the bottom of it. And I did. I interviewed in collaboration with my admin team. We interviewed every person on the team, every coach, every assistant coach, every parent, even the referee, to make sure that our facts were tight before I respond to the parents' allegations. And here's what I found at the end of the day. And they were resistant, but they accepted it at the end. This was not about what the coach had, the problem with the coach. This was about playtime, and this is about positioning. And that was the conclusion. And the parent accepted it. I didn't have to debate with the parent. I didn't argue with the parent. I said, this is what it is. And it was accepted and understood, and life went on. That student played that year, had one of his best seasons, and life went on. During graduation, I shook dad's hand, shook mom's hand, shook the student's hand, and off they went. So I wish everyone the best. These things happen. Thank you.
My next question is, give an example of community leadership you provided outside of day-to-day district duties. How did it benefit community support for the district?
Okay. One of the things I noticed that we emphasize here in Dearborn is supporting the whole child. A whole child approach means it's not purely academic. That means we support them both academically and socially emotionally. That is one of my goals when I was a building principal. And it's one of my goals now, because when people feel good, they perform better. So one thing that I did that was a community-based leadership opportunity was raising awareness about cancer awareness through our Pink Out Week celebration. At Walled Lake Western, it is the largest Pink Out game in the state of Michigan. We partner up with St. Baldrick's Foundation, Angels of Hope. We come together to raise awareness about cancer, celebrate those who have beat it and are still with us, and ensure that people understand that we have a moral and ethical obligation to support all students and all staff and everybody that goes through that process. It's an empathy piece. It's a reminder that we don't know what other people are going through. And so our students went through that process. And we have a full week. Every day there's an event. One event is in the gym. It's like an assembly. And we bring a cancer survivor to speak to the students. One year, one of our teachers got vulnerable and was the cancer survivor that spoke to staff. spoke to the community. You can imagine the emotions that came from our students because they did not know. Those are the examples that help us raise a society that's balanced and that's important. And that was an experience that I helped lead in collaboration with, like I said, those other two groups. I can't take full responsibility for it. At the Pink Out game, the final game on Friday night, we honor, our football players honor those who have passed and those who are still with us with their jerseys and their names on the back. All right. And I'm going to say her name, Mrs. Linda Ishbia. She's the one that developed this. She's been a partner in our community, and I appreciate all the work she's done. So I'm grateful for those experiences. Another experience was recently, all right, when we look at the unified basketball game. Last week, a couple weeks ago, I was invited to the unified basketball game. I was supposed to be the DJ, so I was very excited. I brought my headphones. I was hoping there was a turntable. I was really excited. What they handed me is a phone with Bluetooth, and they said at 6 o'clock, just press play. So I didn't get to enjoy the DJ event. However, it was great to bring people together, right? Awareness is important. And so those are some of the things I participate with and I also lead to serve our community. Thank you.
Great. All right, Dr. Hamka, my third question to you is, how do we create a district-wide culture of continuous improvement, aligning our actions to achieve strategic outcomes?
Can you repeat that one more time? Thanks.
How do we create a district-wide culture of continuous improvement, aligning our actions to achieve strategic outcomes?
So when I think of this concept of continuous improvement, I think of this. I think of these words right after each other. I think of consistent, predictable behavior with accountability and transparency over time. Consistent, predictable behavior with accountability and transparency over time. When we think about a cycle of growth that in my opinion, it's not something that's transactional. It must be transformational. It must be intentional. I believe it starts off with a clear focus around what are the areas we want to grow in. What are those areas? What are the intended outcomes of those areas? Once we can identify what those are, it's important to bring people together to develop a system where we can evaluate those outcomes. All right, regular meetings, metrics, all those pieces that we use. It's kind of like a SMART goal, right? Basically measurable to make sure that and reliable to make sure that we can evaluate whether or not we are meeting the continuous learning culture. And then thirdly, we assess and look at data. Data is an important component for continuous learning because the data allows us to delineate between politics and rumors. The data is clean. It's supposed to be, right? And it's supposed to help us evaluate growth or not, all right? And through that process, we are held responsible and accountable for that cycle. As a superintendent, if I was chosen, if I'm in that role, I see myself as making the continuous learning cycle visible and available, right? I want everyone to see what it looks like for continuous learning. And every member of our community, our teachers, our students, our administrators, all have a direct line as to what their role is relative to that continuous learning cycle. And so it's an accountability piece. And we, as a team here, the 7 of you and me, have the opportunity to make sure that we celebrate those and we put it out there and we're transparent. Because if we do it right, which I believe we will, and we will do it right, we will see the growth we want to see. But it needs to be intentional. It needs to be specific, and we need buy-in. That is why having a stakeholder feedback and voice has the potential to make this happen. Did I answer all the pieces?
You can answer however you want. The question was, how do we create a district-wide culture of continuous improvement, aligning our actions to achieve strategic outcomes?
I think we got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. My last question for you is, how have you obtained and utilized stakeholder feedback to modify district priorities? Please provide a recent example and the impact it provided.
Impact. Sure. As a superintendent, I believe that it is essential that the culture and climate of every building is positive and welcoming. and that staff feel valued and appreciated for all their hard work. In my experience in Walled Lake, when I entered in, I conducted something that I called a listening tour. I met with every teacher, both departmentally and individually, to learn about what they want with their next principal. What do you want? What kind of leadership style? And what I learned in the process was there was a huge disconnect between the staff and the administration before I came on board. Now, when I came on board, there was only one assistant principal left in the team. Everybody else was on. So I had the opportunity to rebuild the team, which was phenomenal. But the reason why I'm sharing the story with you is because I learned from staff that some of them were very uncomfortable to come down from their cars in the morning because of the lack of support and the concerns that took place before, historically. And so I listened for, it was like maybe a week and a half, all day, taking notes and trying to figure out what the concerns were. I collected all the data, and on the first day of school, I introduced myself, a welcome back celebration, all those lovely things we do at the beginning of the year, and I shared the list of items that that the building collectively shared with me. And I asked them, does that look accurate? Some of them went up and changed some things, others were deleted, but I had a list. And through that list, we began our work. I ended up hiring a solid administrative team, and I'm grateful for all of them. And we realized that the concerns was a result of a lack of service. And through servant leadership, I made sure that the administrative team, we worked together collaboratively, we had that list, and we checked things off as we done things. For example, their concern was a lack of support, visibility, and accountability with students. I'm happy to say that I spent more time in the hallways. And the students got pretty clever. They knew where our posts were, and they would move their behaviors elsewhere, and we'd also change our posts. It's the visibility piece. And it's also the follow-up. And so in that experience, I have changed the culture and climate at Western. Students felt held accountable, and they knew what the expectations were. Disciplines went down, fights went down, and staff felt valued. For that teacher that shared with me that she didn't want to get out of her car, a couple weeks before I left the building and became the assistant superintendent, I asked her, I said, how do you like Western now? She gave me a hug, and she goes, thank you for everything you do. And so I believe when we listen and when we respond, not react, when we respond intentionally and with a high degree of fidelity, we have that opportunity to make the changes we need. Thank you.
Before I hand it off to Trustee Bazzi, there's 15 questions left, and then there's time for you to ask us questions, and then time for a closing statement by you, and there's exactly 1 hour left.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Hamka,
Yes.
welcome.
Hi, thank you.
3 questions for you on political awareness. First, as our superintendent, how would you advocate for political action that benefits our district and public education throughout our state?
I believe the responsibility of the superintendent is to have vast knowledge about laws that impact the schools, legislation that impacts the schools, revenue laws that impact the schools. Not just for me to understand what they are, for all of us here to understand what they are and the impact they have on our schools. Once we understand the impact, an example would be like 31AA, right? That's something you passed and you supported. But initially, districts were confused. They were not sure whether it was something that we should do. And that's part of the process of the superintendent. It is my responsibility to raise awareness, to make recommendations to you, and to work collaboratively with you so we understand what the case is. As for political relations, in Oakland County, we have a monthly legislative meeting at Oakland County. I'm sure Wayne Risa has something similar where I could get to know the legislators and share our voices with them. Ultimately, my responsibility is to share the voices of our Dearborn constituents with legislators. That is my responsibility. I also believe that when we learn about other school districts who have similar demographic, we can partner up with them and our voices are louder. For example, We have a huge, obviously, an ELL, MLL population, 45%. There are other school districts in Oakland County, in Macomb County, that have similar numbers. If we wrap our arms together and share the concerns about, let's just say for the sake of the example, Title III or Section 41 funding, we have that opportunity to put a dent in legislation to support us, right? For example, Utica schools, Warren Consolidated schools, Novi, they have a huge ELL population. We have that opportunity, and I've connected with people in those areas. Finally, last year I had the opportunity to listen to all the aspiring governors and their education proposal at the GEM Theater for the K-12 Alliance presentation. I was intrigued about what governors and legislators think about education. I wish they would spend more time in the classroom. Did I answer the question? Thank you.
Superintendents are often faced with making decisions when there's no clear right answer and the community is divided. Please describe a time when you faced such a decision, including how you approached the decision-making process and how you worked to build understanding and support for the direction you chose.
Can you repeat the last part?
Sure. Include how you approached the decision-making process and how you worked to build understanding and support for the decision you chose.
Thank you. Appreciate you repeating that for me. So Walled Lake schools at one point had about 16,000 students. Today we have close to 12,000. We conducted a utilization study. And in that process, we learned that our middle schools are not efficiently utilized. And so we went through a utilization process, focus groups, and we decided to repurpose one of the middle schools. That was not an easy decision. Stakeholders were frustrated, teachers were frustrated, there was emotions and there were frustrations, understandable, because as humans, we're creatures of habits. We get comfortable going to our buildings, it becomes our classroom, our building. And I understand that and I respect that. And so that's the process we chose. And I supported that process. Because if we're going to engage in long-term solutions for the district, those are some of the difficult decisions we have to make. But my role in it was two-layered. Now, as the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, I have to move those individuals to other buildings. So that was a double-layer work that I had to realize and work through. Luckily, the contract has a stipulation that says teachers have 3 options as to where they want to go in the event that a school closes. And so every teacher gave me their top 3. But before we get into the conversation about what their top 3 were, I had to go share this information with them. And they were frustrated. And they had tough questions, and it was very uncomfortable. But I can tell you that after I completed my mission to make sure they were placed in their favorite place, I believe the edge wore off and life went on. I was able to make sure that every teacher, except one, got their first choice. And then that last person had the opportunity later to go to their first choice, but chose to stay in the building they were placed. So what I do now is I visit those schools and I check in on people. And I can tell you, like anything else, emotions come and go. I'm happy that they feel that they're okay with where they are. And of course, you're not going to make everyone happy in that decision. But it was a tough decision because it impacted the whole school community.
What impact do standardized testing requirements have on teaching and learning in our state?
Standardized tests. So standardized tests are established for accountability purposes. That's what they're established about. To make sure that we are teaching our students, to make sure that we are hitting standards, and to ensure that we're not just teaching content, but we're teaching the concept of metacognition, how to understand, as well as what we call academic vocabulary or disciplinary vocabulary that's transferable. And so in those experiences, the SAT, for the sake of this conversation, grades a student. And that grade is also labeled with the building and the district. And the district eventually gets a grade of how we're doing. And so, in my opinion, there are pros and cons to this. When we look at the pros, it gives opportunities for people who score well to utilize their score and to get to the colleges of their dreams. And that's great for them. Other examples would be, for example, when we look at our data for the achievement gap or the opportunity gap. If we take that data from the SAT and we compare it to our internal assessments, do we also see an achievement gap? Is there consistency and predictability? All right? And then finally, when we look at resources, sometimes the results of those tests allow us to capture resources to support students of need. The cons about it is if you're having a bad day that morning and you get into a little fender bender, you're probably not going to score very well because you're anxious and overwhelmed about what happened that morning. All right? And it's a lot of pressure on some students. The second piece about it that maybe is a con is the pressure it puts on teachers, right? Sometimes with high stakes evaluations and things of that nature, we don't want to be a district that teaches to the test. I'm not interested in that. We teach to educate, not teach to test. It narrows the curriculum and it takes away from the creativity of teachers. So all in all, if it benefits us, great. Sometimes it doesn't, and I hope that ultimately students get to where they need to be, whether they decide to show their test scores for the college admission or not.
Dr. Hamka, welcome home.
Thank you.
My category is leadership attributes.
Okay.
First question is, please describe your typical leadership style and share how it is effective for those that you serve.
So I've been in leadership for 17 years. I'm a very different leader today than what I was 17 years ago. I promise you that. I believe I'm a lot wiser and a lot more refined. However, in each environment that I've worked in, the need for the type of leadership was different. So I want to be clear to say that it's very hard for me to say, this is my leadership style. What I can tell you is I'm a whatever it takes kind of leader. So what does that mean? That means in my environment at Walled Lake Western, when I engaged in the staff about their concerns around, about the listening tour, I made sure that my assistant principals and the administration were servant leaders. We served. We did everything we can to build the trust of staff so we can focus on a culture that's about learning. In my current role right now, I consider myself more as of an empowering leader, right? What does that mean? That means that basically, I don't want to feel like I have to tell those who I evaluate or who I work with what to do. I want to empower them. I want to inspire them. I want them to feel comfortable doing their jobs. If I was to be chosen here, working with cabinet and other principals, I want to make sure that they can be unapologetically themselves. I believe I've been successful in what I do because the person who hired me in Walled Lake allowed me to be unapologetically myself. And the superintendent after that, and the superintendent after that, believe me, they let me do my job. And so I want to empower our administrators and our cabinet members and everybody involved to feel comfortable taking risks and being themselves. So I believe in empowering. And then lastly, the role of a superintendent is there's so many different situations. So I can't not say situational leader, right? There are so many different things, from safety and security, teaching and learning, the politics of the world. The list can go on. I need to be agile. And that's what I do. I'm an agile leader. I do whatever it takes. And I'm not afraid of making tough decisions. I hope I've answered your question.
Good, thank you. 12th question of the night, second one for me.
Okay.
What is the most difficult decision you've made in your educational career? Describe your decision-making process.
In education, we say it's essential for you to build relationships with people, right? Building relationships with people allow you to have courageous conversations, difficult conversations. Building relationships with people allow you to learn more about their families and more about their structure and how they work. And it also allows you to meet together on a human level. So that's important. In human resources, the decisions I make, because this is the human part, is going to eventually impact somebody. That is part of my job. The reality behind my job is that if I'm making decisions for the betterment of the district, there are times that that decision adversely impacts somebody. And so I will share that in my role, I've had to remove people from their jobs. And that experience is difficult, especially when you have an amazing relationship with somebody, right? And I'm not going to get into the details, if that's okay. But it's about misconduct. It's about being unprofessional. It doesn't pass the culture and climate of Walled Lake. It doesn't pass the out loud test. It doesn't support our mission and vision. And if the situation was connected to my children, I'd have a problem with it. So I have to ask myself, if it's okay for my children, it's okay. But if it's not okay, I'm not one who's going to sit on his hands and pretend like I don't see it. So I addressed it, and I engaged in an investigation. I interviewed several stakeholders. I used technology to learn more about the situation. I watched cameras. I collected more from the cameras. I learned more about who was in the area and what was going on. And I engaged the individual in what we call due process. As an HR person, if you're HR, you know due process is essential. And so I engaged in HR, I engaged in due process. I provided the opportunity for the individual to share their thoughts and their story. And at the end, the recommendation that I made was to separate ourselves from this individual. And that's what happened. And I want to reiterate, it's hard because behind the shirt and tie is a human being. I understand people have bills. I understand people have responsibilities. But when I took the oath of being an educator, my responsibility was to serve the best interest of students and to create an environment where students can be themselves. Thank you.
My last question is, how do you inspire and engage the entire school community in support of the district's vision and mission?
Inspire. So we got inspire, educate, and celebrate. It's great. So I believe the culture of the building, of the district, comes from the persona of the leader. I was inspired by a gentleman, I'm going to say his name. I hope he's watching. His name is Dan Hickey. He was the principal that hired me at Stony Creek High School. He hired me, and any time we had conversations, it was about the culture and climate of the building. It was about teaching and learning. It was about the mission and vision of the district. So the way I would do this in this level is that I would be inspiring like I was inspired. I will be visible, and I will communicate the mission and vision. But not just me. I would expect that through my actions, through my examples, I'm hopeful that my cabinet team and you as a board do the same. Because inspiration is contagious in the right environment. And it's important for us to engage in that act. Building principals will feel the same way. It'll trickle down to teachers and our students, and you know the rest of the process, trickle-down process. I believe that's important. But most importantly is that mission and vision is plastered everywhere. And I see it around this building when I was walking through it. But it's one thing to see it on a website. It's another thing to live into it. And so as a superintendent, I look forward to living into your mission and vision. And it's easy to do that, for me at least, I can speak. Because when I think about the concept of inspire, educate, and celebrate, I think my experience in Dearborn was that. I was inspired by Dearborn. I went to HFCC when it was HFCC, And then celebrating, just the fact that I'm here, I believe, is celebratory. I'm grateful to be here for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee D'Ambrosio?
Dr. Hamka, I am going to ask you questions and instructions and curriculum.
Okay.
Describe one program or strategy you led that narrowed the achievement gap for economically disadvantaged and historically underperforming students.
Sure. When I was an assistant principal at Ahart Middle School, we were labeled a focus school. Basically, we had an achievement gap. It was around socioeconomically disadvantaged students. And so my principal gave me the opportunity, and I'm grateful for her leadership, gave me the opportunity to take on this task and as a continuation of what she started. So through 31A money, we have the opportunity to support those who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. We learned that we put together an after-school program for students to come after and to really focus on those areas that they struggled in. It was mostly math, science, English, social studies, but most of it was math and reading, math and English. And so we began this program, and we realized that students weren't coming. Students weren't coming to this program that we built for them so we can support them. What we learned is that they didn't have transportation to go back home. Transportation was an issue. So they'd get on the bus and go home because they couldn't stay after to go home. So in collaboration with the mobile home park, which is where they lived, I had the opportunity to facilitate a deal with the management there. They had something called the clubhouse. The clubhouse is the management building. And in the management building, there were some tables and chairs for students and people to hang out. We were allowed to collaborate with them and have teachers go from the building to the clubhouse so we can support our students. Basically what it is, it's a tier 1, tier 2 intervention, small group intervention. That's basically what it is. We had the opportunity for students to work on homework and develop their skills in areas they were deficient in and struggled with. And so what we did is we did that the entire year and the following year as well. And through that collaborative process, students would come to school and they'd be excited to hand in their homework to the teacher. Here you go, right? There's a sense of pride when you do your work. And there's a sense of pride when you can have engaging conversation because you know the content. And so as I'm saying this, I'm picturing some of the students in my mind who've gone through this process. And I'm happy to say that the building was no longer a focus school. And then life went on. I left, and I'm not sure where that program is today. Thank you.
This is question number 15. Reading at grade level by third grade is a critical milestone for future academic success. What strategies will you support to ensure all students achieve grade level literacy by the end of third grade? If you need me to repeat it, I'll be happy to repeat it.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Reading at grade level by third grade is a critical milestone for future academic success. What strategies will you support to ensure all students achieve grade level literacy by the end of third grade?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So a third grader is about what, 8, 9 years old? Say about 8, 9 years old. So they've been with us almost half their lives at this point. And so when I think about literacy, specifically third grade, I think, there are times, there are people in our communities, there are people, families, that read to their children before they're born. Right? There's the practice of that. The baby hears what is being read. That's what they say. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Right? That's what the psychologists say. They hear, they're intellectual, they understand, not to say they understand, but they hear, they understand, they hear the voice, and their brains are developed a certain way. There's advantages to that. And then there are people who don't read to their children or may not have access. And I don't want to get into why, but for all the reasons we know. Okay, is that fair? And so now we bring everybody to school to read. Naturally, there is a differentiation of their abilities to read at grade level. I agree that we need to read at grade level. I don't think we should stop at third grade. We should do grade level throughout the rest of your career or higher. As for the strategies you're talking about, I believe first and foremost, this is not a strategy. I'll get to the strategies, but more importantly, there needs to be an environment where we foster a love for reading. If you run a marathon, you know you don't just run a marathon, right? You run hundreds of miles before you run a marathon. It's the same thing for reading. We have to create and foster an environment that is conducive for reading. We need people to love reading and to enjoy reading and to value reading and understand the impact of reading. And that's societal. That's a cultural thing we have to work on, you know. And we can do it through the district. I believe that. In terms of the strategies, I believe that establishing a strong, high-leverage literacy curriculum program will help with the support of ensuring that teachers are professionally developed to understand the elements of those pieces. We have to make sure that we provide teachers with the opportunity to learn literacy program and support the students. You know, there's a program out there today that came out from the governor. She supported it. It's called Letters Literacy. Basically, it's a program that helps teachers support literacy more efficiently and effectively. I also believe there needs to be what we call a block schedule, an opportunity for teachers to differentiate to meet the needs of the variety of different reading levels in their classrooms in collaboration with their colleagues. And the third piece is something that I know you do in Dearborn, and that is engage the families. We can't do it without the families. We need the families to be actively engaged in reading. I believe that will help at least establish a starting point for us to increase literacy and make sure, to the best of our abilities. Oh, one more piece, the MTSS process. I'm sorry. In that experience, I believe it's important that our MTS process is robust and data-driven. That we are not just going. It's not a process just for the sake of a process. Is that we are responding to the data that comes from students' literacy grades or literacy points, or whatever their grades are, whatever the way they evaluate their grades or their level. And I believe with the continuum, the collaboration of those pieces, an MTSS process, as well as the other two components, I believe we can help ensure that students reach their third grade level. Thank you.
Last question from me. What are the most urgent challenges for special education in our region, and how should these challenges be addressed?
As the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, I can tell you, we have a shortage with teachers, and we have a greater shortage with special education teachers. Our most vulnerable population need high-quality teachers, and they're not producing them at the rate that we need. That is one problem. How do we fix that problem? How do we fix most problems that relate to professions? We need to make it exciting and welcoming. We need to work collaboratively with universities who specialize in special education. And they may not be in Michigan. They may be elsewhere. And we have to be willing to invest in recruiting efforts so that we can bring certified, highly effective teachers to meet the needs of our students. In my current role, I've partnered up with Oakland University, Eastern, Central, and Grand Valley State University. But that's not enough. We need to incentivize their education so that teachers who are currently working in education will be interested or may be interested in taking on a certification connected to special education. And that is one concern I have. Even when we third party outsource it, it's still difficult. It's very difficult situation we're in. I am hopeful that with the right funding equation, we can stimulate and encourage people to go into that profession more. That's the first piece. The second piece is funding, which connects to the second concern is funding, which connects to staffing. There was a research done by the Research Collaborative. And that research states, it's from Michigan State. I'm not a Michigan State fan, but it's from Michigan State. Says that when we fund special education or MLL or any minority or achievement gap group, it's essential that we engage in a weighted process, right? A weighted process. And I believe through my work in legislation, which I hope I have the opportunity to work with legislators, that we continue to push for that research project to become legislation. We don't have the funding. We are expected through IDEA to support special education, but it's not funded adequately. And we are learning that we need more support in there because of the definitions and the need for the support with students with more ASD and other developmental concerns. So that is the second piece. And then the third piece, we talk about LRE and FAPE, least restrictive environment. That is something that's a hot topic right now. And it's important because what it does, it requires us to ensure that students have the opportunity to be engaged and involved in a regular classroom to the best of our abilities. And that's important. 20 years ago, I talked about differentiation. LRE further enhances that process of differentiation. Here in Dearborn, I have learned through doing my homework, you have a co-teaching model that is pretty robust. And that's great. I hope that I have the opportunity to learn about this co-teaching model because co-teaching models need to be in an environment where the teacher and the special education, the gen ed teacher and the special education teacher have a chemistry that supports. There has to be a chemistry. And through specially designed instruction, we have the opportunity to meet the need of the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Hamka.
And good evening.
You get the one female voice in the room.
Great.
My topic is finances.
Okay.
Please describe your experience developing and managing budgets, including the largest budget you have overseen and the strategies you use to maintain a balanced budget.
So I'm the assistant soup of HR, as you know. One of my responsibilities is to staff the entire district. We staff the entire district based on enrollment. So I work collaboratively with the assistant superintendent of business and finance. And together, we work to evaluate the different grants, FTEs, grants, FTE, current projections, fund balances, and the most exciting part of my job, contract negotiations. And so we work collaboratively to evaluate those pieces. And so I can tell you that the way we ensure that we're balanced is we make sure that my FTEs and the number of employees I have on my books and the number of employees she has on her books are talking together, and they're consistent and they're predictable. We also work closely together when it comes to staffing other programs such as extended school year for our special needs students, as well as summer school and other non-traditional learning experiences that we provide. So all in all, when you look at the value of my responsibility, just salaries are about $90 million. You add healthcare, it's an additional 62 million. So those are my responsibilities. And I can tell you that the work you do is never done with budgeting. With the new laws and all the different grants, which are important here in Dearborn, you have opportunities to do pretty amazing things. I hope I answered your question.
I'm not going to let you know.
Thanks.
How would you ensure that our district spending is aligned with our priorities?
So I have your strategic plan over here. I thought I'd just make sure that I pull it up. So when we talk about aligning, it's important that aligning is not a transactional situation, it's a transformational one. That's what makes organizations more efficient and effective. That's basically what the reality is, right? And so when we are aligned, we need to make sure that our urgencies, our outcomes, earlier you were talking about the growth model. We need to make sure that whatever our outcomes are being invested in from a resource standpoint. So for example, in your strategic plan, you talk about instructional improvement and innovation. You have a SMART goal, you have strategies. What we need to do is to evaluate, are the resources that we have in our bank account feeding that focus? And if it is, then our resources are aligned and they're being used efficiently. Same thing with student and staff well-being. Are we engaging in programs around social and emotional learning? Are we providing those activities that help them establish empathetic roots and things of that nature? And then with stakeholder engagement in facilities and infrastructure, are our sinking fund money going to the right place, right? And so when we evaluate the alignment of budgeting, it's essential that we, first of all, are clear and transparent in the process, and that we have multiple eyes on them to make sure that they're aligned. Thank you.
And my final question, what is your experience with millage renewals, bond campaigns, and sinking fund proposals? You wanted this question. Share one campaign you led or supported and the factors that determined its success or failure.
Great, thank you. I've had experience with a sinking fund campaign in 2022, and I've had a couple experiences with the bond projects. And so I'd like to talk about the bond projects. In 2019, I was hired to be the principal at Western. In 2019, we passed a bond of about $316 million. $90 million of the $316 went to Western. And so my experience at the building level was working collaboratively with All Construction, Plan Moran Real Point, and TMP Construction architects to establish a 21st century learning environment. The building that I was initially in was from 1968. It was very cubicle, very little reception, and we had water leaks everywhere. We did the best we can. We had the opportunity for this bond, and we converted it to a 21st century learning environment. We built a 152,000 square foot academic wing, which consists of flexible seating, natural lights, vibrant colors, collaboration spaces, and Bluetooth technology for all our devices. And new furniture as well. Flexible furniture, because the days of sitting straight are over, right? And so I had that opportunity. But that's not what the exciting part was. The exciting part is choosing those items. I worked collaboratively with stakeholders, parents, teachers, students, and I invited them for a variety of different projects we were working on. From the carpeting, to the color of the paint, to our new Walled Lake Western logo, as well as our mission and vision. We work collaboratively to make sure that the voices of our stakeholders were inserted in every item that we purchased and we invested in for the school. So that's the building piece. As the assistant sup of HR from a district level, we passed a bond in 2024, a couple of years ago, for about $216 million. In that role, my responsibilities was to focus on two pieces. Number one, to make sure that every employee in the district voted. I'm not going to say yes or no because we're not supposed to, but to vote. We need to vote. And that's what the message I have done at that time with my staff, with the staff in Walled Lake. The second piece I think is essential is the element of communication and marketing. The expectation, in my opinion, is that, in my experience and in my opinion, is that we have every employee should have a 30-second elevator speech. Remember, our community trusts our teachers. Our teachers need to know about the bond and the impact it has on the learning environment. So I believe a 30-second elevator speech by teachers and administrators is an important function of making sure that people can make the best informed decisions. And as a superintendent, working with you, I hope that opportunity comes where we can take the show on the road with the communication department and marketing department and ensure that every member of this community understands what we're doing, why we're doing, transparently and openly. Thank you.
Dr. Hamka, Trustee Subuh will have your last 3 questions, and then you have an opportunity to ask us questions, and then an opportunity for a closing statement, and you have 23 minutes left.
All right, let's do this.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Hamka.
Good evening.
Question number 20. How do you work with building and district administrators to establish a high-performing team while balancing support, autonomy, and accountability? Provide us with an example of when you built such a team, including the specific steps you took to ensure its success.
Hi. When I think about the teams that I've developed, and I'm going to share an example of maybe 2, it's about relationships. I have to get to know people. You don't just build teams, right? You have to get to know people, understand their strengths, their areas of passion, as I indicated earlier about empowerment. And from those experiences, I have been able to develop high-functioning teams. And so I think that earlier you asked me about my leadership style. I'd like to share my management style, which is a little different, I believe. I would consider myself a relational leader with high expectations and accountability. And so what does that mean? That means I'm going to trust you, but I'm not going to trust you naively to the point where I pretend like I don't see things. I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to get to know you, and then I'm going to set up meetings, regular meetings, one-on-one meetings like I have done with my administration teams back when I was a principal, to check on the progress of the work, to make sure that you are in line when it comes to our strategic plan and the responsibilities of your role. And I'm going to support them, and that's important that I support them. I'm going to support their innovative qualities. I'm going to support them to ensure that they have the tools they need to be successful in their roles. I'm going to support them to ensure that when they take risks, that there are safety nets involved. I want them to be themselves. So as I support them through the process, as I support them as my colleagues, I look forward to ensuring that they have the tools they need. I also want to add the fact that while I am supportive, I'm also pretty firm. There are some things that are just non-negotiable. Student safety is non-negotiable. We're not having that conversation, right? We need to make sure that decisions need to be made accordingly and appropriately so that students feel safe and that families feel safe sending their students to our buildings. Another thing I hope to work with is data-driven conversations. It's about data. And so when I meet with them, to hold them responsible and accountable, as you indicated in your question, as well as supportive, is we're going to have data walks. I want to know, what is your goal for this year? How are you accomplishing that goal? And what can I do to help you? Accountability isn't about getting in trouble. Accountability is understanding the situation that we're in and figuring out how we can support people so they can do better at their jobs, right? I don't want to hire someone and tell them what to do. I want to hire somebody and let them support themselves and maybe tell me what to do because I don't have all the answers, right? So it's a collaborative approach. And finally, I would say that I'm fair and incredible. Fair and credible, not incredible. Well, maybe, I don't know about that. All right, fair and credible. I'm a person of my word. When I tell you something is going to happen, it's going to happen. If I need to work a 24-hour day, let's go. Let's do a 24-hour day. Ultimately, I know this job is not an 8-to-4 job. It's a 24/7 job. I'm hungry and I'm motivated for it. I'm saying that to you because that's how I'm going to hold. That's how I'm going to mirror the expectations for those who I work with. I want to see a couple other things. When I meet with building principals and cabinet members, I usually ask 2 things. I ask, what are you working on this year and how are you evaluating it? And number 2, what's your 5-year plan? I want to empower the staff in Dearborn. If you're a teacher and you want to be an administrator, I want to empower you. If you're an administrator and you want to be a central office administrator, I want to empower you. Because I can tell you this, as a board, I want to be very frank with you and honest. I would not be here if someone didn't trust me. Every person that hired me trusted me. And I want to work with my colleagues. I want to trust them and work with them, and I believe them to make the best informed decisions for students. Thank you.
Next question. How would you assess the culture and the climate of our district, and what steps would you take as superintendent to positively influence and strengthen it?
I want to go back to your mission, right? You talk about inspiration. Inspiration is exciting. See, culture and climate is how people feel, and is the environment exciting for them to work in? Staff morale, feeling valued, and being excited. I was inspired, as I said earlier, by a gentleman named Dan Hickey. He inspired me. He saw something in me at Stony Creek High School, like the teachers in Dearborn saw in me. He asked me after my first year, he said, Ali, what's your 5-year plan? I said, I'm going to be here forever, Dan. I love this place. So I said. I talked to him a couple days ago. I reminded him of what he said. He said, Ali, I knew you were out after 5 years. And so that level of inspiration, I have to embody it as a superintendent. And I've been so lucky to be around people that have modeled it and led by example in that way. So I don't want to get off too far about your question. I believe that the way we do that is through active listening and engaging in what I call qualitative discussions, civil discourse and conversations. I want to get to know staff, and I want to get to know parents and students and everybody. The way I envision doing this is, and it's outlined in my 90-day plan that I'll give to you in a little bit, but I will visit every building, and I will visit every classroom in the first 90 days. And I will listen, and I will take notes, and I'll report back to you exactly what I've heard. All of it. I'm not going to hide anything, because you need to know. I need to know, and we need to know how we're going to work together to ensure that the culture and climate is in a good place, because we need our teachers to stay, and we need our families to stay, right? It's important. Retention and recruitment is a big deal in HR right now. There are not enough teachers. We got to continue inspiring them. We got to lead by example, and I need to lead through the process of your mission and vision. Thank you. Oh, sorry, one more thing before I forget. I talked about qualitative data. I'm not sure if surveys always depict what we want to hear. And so I go back to qualitative data. As somebody who finished my doctorate's degree, I did a lot of data and did a lot of work, and I can tell you, qualitative data is a good thing. It's the human element that comes from it. Thank you.
All right, the last formal question. How have you handled conflicts with labor relations or collective bargaining? Provide one example, citing your role and the outcome.
We don't have any of those issues. We don't have any problems. I am grateful to say that I work with an amazing union president. I hope he's watching. I work with him. I meet with him once a week. And we fix problems. That's our jobs. We evaluate the language and the contract. We share each other's perceptions of how we understand it or not. He shares the historical perception. Sometimes I agree and sometimes I don't agree. And so one problem that we dealt with not too long ago was the compensation of a teacher that covers a class during their prep hour. Do you pay them a standard rate or do you pay them their per diem rate? That was the conversation. And so during negotiations, we clarified that language because it wasn't very clear in the initial one. So it was a problem. We had the conversation, and this is what we agreed. I'm going to share it with you. We agreed that if it's an itemized day, like a Monday and a Thursday and a Monday, and the teacher is not actually teaching and putting grades and actually doing the instructional piece, it's more of a coverage piece, they get X amount of money. If they are actually teaching the class and taking it on and putting grades in the book and doing the lab work and everything, we will pay them their per diem pay. Ultimately, whatever we decide needs to be clear. Fair? And then the negotiations piece. I'm grateful to say that I negotiated a contract with the WLEA. I've engaged in both IBB, interest-based bargaining, as well as traditional bargaining. And through that process, I was able to work and come up to an agreement. We negotiated for almost a year, 11 months. We had about 50 sessions. We negotiated prohibited subjects of bargaining. We negotiated language and finance. It was a great experience. Those are my experiences. Now, I want to go back to the previous question. I forgot to tell you about the high value, the high effective team that I built. And I wanted to say it was the negotiating team. I forgot to talk about that in the previous question about my expectations and holding administrators accountable. The negotiating team was established based on people's experiences. I had people on the team who were number crunchers and liked spreadsheets and wanted to put equations in. And I had people who enjoyed the language piece and wanted to talk about language. And we had people that just oversaw what we were doing. So just know, as a lead negotiator, you can't do everything. You need people with you to support you. And I'm grateful for a high-functioning team that worked with me. That is why I chose them. It was intentional choice. Thank you. During that question, I remembered that I didn't cover the rest of the information in the previous one. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I just want to share that we have 12 minutes and 30 seconds, just to keep that in mind.
Okay.
We would like to take a few minutes now to provide you with the opportunity to ask any questions you might have for the board.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Here's the question. What do you believe staff members value most about working for Dearborn?
It's a good question. Go ahead, Trustee Muslim.
I can start. Obviously, besides compensation and benefits that they do get. Let's be real about it, right? The most important thing, I mean, obviously, 2 years ago, we negotiated a good contract with DFT, and I appreciate their partnership. I think many of their members are here. And majority of their ask was time. They want time. And time means prep time. They want time for PLC. And the district said, yes, we'll give you time. And that's why we have every Tuesday early release. I know some parents didn't like it, and they still don't, especially working parents. But it was for the benefit for our staff to be given that time to learn from each other and to appreciate each other, obviously to have that environment where they can learn and also kind of a breathing room for them as well. The other thing is to feel valued. You mentioned it in your answers. The human element is very important. Even if you go to a job that pays you 6 figures, but if you're not really respected and you don't feel valued, you probably won't last long. So that's probably my take on your question.
Thank you.
Trustee.
I'll piggyback off some of that last point. I think the value piece, I think we celebrate a lot, and there is a lot to be celebrated. And I think, you know, sometimes we make jokes and laugh, especially for us, like, oh, we have another celebration to attend, right? But I think it's the greatest problem to have, and I think it helps our staff really feel appreciated, and our students see it. You know, everybody gets a sense of community, a sense of motivation, a sense of accomplishment. So I love that part of it. And then the second piece is the community piece, of course. Some of it, you know, it's a double-edged sword to be so tight-knit and so close and so, you know, combined and put together. But I think people love it, and it's a sense you don't find everywhere. Of course, it varies from building to building. It varies, you know, from sides of town or whatever it might be, levels to your staffing. But I think that sense of community can be found no matter what and where you are. And if not, you know, we will help you find it somewhere. So I think that opportunity being there is so important, and it's really nice to see that it's appreciated.
All right. Thank you.
Trustee Petlikov.
I think also that staff has discovered that we have a lot of support systems in place for them in a variety of ways that have grown over the years, be it through their unions or through opportunities that we attempt to provide for them in training models and other systems that we have in place that help them find growth while they're working here in the community. They also, I think, have been able to have a trust factor that, and I've been on board for a very long time, where we went through a lot of staffing issues where we had to lay off a lot of teachers in 2008. Now they feel we've done a great job managing the budget, and they feel a sense of security here as well.
Right.
Trustee Sir.
I think something I hear from a lot of teachers is because Dearborn, we're very unique. There's really no place like us. And almost every student that graduates, I'll say every student that graduates, this came up yesterday or the day before, I think too, is that just about every student that we graduate is making history somehow, okay? I mean, 100 years ago, they were making history as maybe the first high school graduate in their family or the first one going to college. And while other cities might have grown out of that, I'm kind of glad that we haven't, because we're always open to newcomers and people coming here. And so still to this day, teachers are seeing their work result in something historic. And it's really beautiful. You know, whether they're the first high school graduate, the first college graduate, maybe the first person to get a PhD, you might be the first person in your family line to get a PhD.
Yep.
And so we are making history every single day here, and we couldn't do that without our teachers. And I think they know that. I hope they know that, that they are an integral part of that.
Thank you. I appreciate your words.
Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions.
All right. So in saying that, in closing, is there anything you would like to add?
Sure, I'd like to just share my closing statement, if that's okay. As I began this interview, I shared that 23 years ago, I had a conversation with a veteran teacher. And she informed me that when the timing was right, an opportunity would present itself, and that what Dearborn, an opportunity would present itself that would bring me back to Dearborn. I believe this is the opportunity. I hope throughout this interview that I communicated my leadership style and my commitment to hard work and dedication, consistency, predictability, and a high degree of relentlessness in my work. I want to thank you for everything you do as a board. I know your job is difficult, and I know you have huge responsibilities. But just know that in my lens, it does not go unnoticed. Thank you, and I appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Hamka. We appreciate your interest in the superintendent position for the Dearborn Public School. The board is interviewing 6 candidates this week. We will let you know after our meeting on Saturday, April 18th, where we stand in our search process. Thank you for your participation in the first round interview. Appreciate it.
I'll motion for a 10-minute recess.
All right.
Can we make it 15?
I'd like to motion for a 15-minute recess.
Support.
You can hand those out to us, that's fine.
All in favor?
Motion for 15-minute recess.
I need a second.
He
Oh, you're
supports.
second. All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye. Motion's approved. He's in the bathroom. I mean, he is a comedian.
You have a joke?
Could we? Good evening. All right. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Dearborn Public School, I would like to welcome Fatme Faraj to this interview for the position of superintendent. Ms. Faraj is Executive Director of Student Achievement for the Dearborn Public School. I will take a few minutes to briefly describe our format. The interview might take up to 90 minutes. Time will be kept on the monitor. There will be 22 questions from the board. Toward the end of the interview, time permitting, we will give you the opportunity to ask questions of the board and to make a closing statement. We will let you know if time is becoming an issue and there's a need to pick up the pace of the responses. Trustee Zahar will be doing that. For those present for the interview, we welcome you and encourage your feedback. We have provided a QR code that will take you to an online feedback form with a link at the top of this form that will take you to an Arabic version. We will have a place for public comment on the agenda for this Saturday meeting. Although this task of choosing our superintendent is the responsibility of the Board of Education, as the elected representative of our community, we value and seriously consider the input of our stakeholder in the process. In saying that, we'll start with the open question for Ms. Faraj. While we had the opportunity to review your application materials, audience members have not. Please briefly review your background and share what causes you to be interested in this position at this point in your career.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to the audience. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to also thank my family and my colleagues and everyone for encouraging me and supporting me through this process. My name is Fatme Faraj. I am an executive director serving Dearborn Public School students. Dearborn Public Schools did not only shape my career, it truly shaped my life. Over 35 years ago, over 3.5 decades, my family and I moved to the United States for better opportunities and a better life. I came with 9 of my siblings. One stayed behind and he went to Australia. Too bad for him, but we all reside here in Dearborn, in East Dearborn, and we all have families of 3 and 4 So we have over 60 extended family members who have been attending Dearborn Public Schools or graduated through the district within the last 3 decades. I myself had my first experience in Dearborn Public Schools because I had just graduated from high school and had to enter the adult ed classes in Dearborn, and that was my first encounter in the district. I spent 4 months there to help me transition from French to English, and that truly sparked an interest in me to become a teacher. That was not the plan coming here. 3.5 years later, I returned to the district as a classroom teacher. A classroom teacher at K through A at Lowry School, where I served in the classroom, and then I transitioned into a position that supports the hardest to teach students. It's called Reading Specialty through Western Michigan University, and it was a field experience on a daily basis. I would take the students who have difficulties learning how to read, using diagnostic methods and providing daily interventions. And I can say that every single student on my caseload for the 3 years I serviced these students was successful in reading. I then obtained my bilingual bicultural master's degree and worked as a bilingual classroom teacher, supporting teachers and also supporting students. From there, I transitioned into a coaching position, providing professional development to the entire building, as well as going in the classrooms and modeling lessons. At Lowry also, I worked as an interventionist, and I served for 4 years as an assistant principal. So this extensive experience at Lowry School was very rewarding. It was lengthy, 17 years, and it truly prepared me. In 2010, I'm trying to keep the dates straight, I was appointed to Maples Elementary School as a principal, appointed by former superintendent and former state superintendent, late Brian Whiston. And the way it was communicated to me was that I'm giving you a promotion, and the school is on the state take or over list because it's on the brink of being a priority school. At the time, that was the designations given by the State Department of Ed, and that was the accountability for the schools. And it was mainly based on achievement, student achievement and proficiency. The school was performing at 12th percentile rank at the state and one of the lowest in Dearborn. Of course, that was a sense of urgency and a responsibility put on my shoulder. So I truly leveraged all of the experience I had, started looking at the budget, looking at the systems in the school, walked into the building, almost did not know any of the staff members, built the relationships, created the systems, and mobilized all of the services around the tools to move the student achievement from the 12th percentile rank. This will probably come up in the other questions, but I will say that through creating systems, being clear, creating partnerships with the community, with the families, and with partners, and focusing on the whole child, I led the school from the 12th percentile rank, along with the team, to the 73 percentile rank within 6 years. This was a huge success that the staff earned and the leadership team at the school, and it was really a model of transforming schools incrementally and also focusing on the whole child, not only academics, but social emotional learning, whole child approach, and we call that affective in our field. Moving from Maples, I started serving at the district level as a director of school improvement and leadership coaching. where I oversaw the accountability system for all of the schools in Dearborn, and this is school improvement planning and accountability, and also started a program called Dearborn Teacher University that services teachers and professional staff who enter our districts, and they enter with various levels of preparation. Some of them come from charter schools, others from private schools, and some come from preparatory programs that are very fast-paced, and others four-year universities. And we know that, and we continue to service teachers. We have learned to differentiate professional development for teachers and support them in obtaining their credentials for continuing education classes. 2 years later, I also moved into the Executive Director of Student Achievement position, where I continued to lead school improvement. I started working with the entire Dearborn High feeder track, communicating with the families, with administrators, with the teachers. I oversaw the coaching program for the middle school, and I currently continue to serve the coaches from 6 through 12. I also serviced the counselors and held the forum and feeder meetings. So all of the professional development truly was a very rewarding experience. Also, some of my responsibilities under the executive director position included overseeing the strategic plan in the district and working closely with the board on that, overseeing the MICAP process, which I happen to also serve on the Michigan Department of Education Committee to establish this process. MICAP stands for Michigan Integrated Continuous Improvement Process. And in a short term, it's school improvement planning for districts and buildings. I also oversee the Department of Assessment, curriculum, and instruction and professional development. Seeing the urgency and the uncertainty in budgets and funding the schools, one of the passions I had truly, and also seeing the levels, the proficiencies in the buildings, I was very interested in applying and securing grants for the students. Specifically for the students, then I branched into different areas. I secured over $14 million in grants for the last 5 years for the district. And these were mainly to support students in literacy and numeracy, language arts and math for K through 12 students. Some of these grants also support non-instructional staff, such as some of them secretaries, bus drivers, any staff member who is interested in the district to apply, and it would cover full tuition to go through the teacher pipeline. They would complete their certification and become teachers. If they're currently teachers, they can obtain an additional endorsement, especially in the areas that are high demand, and we do have shortage in these areas. I continue to see that specific department, Dearborn Teacher University, and Grow Your Own, it falls under that department, also under the leadership of Ms. Faye Turfy. I received the training. We're blessed with Dr. Maleko sending all of us to receive the superintendent certification training through Michigan Leadership Institute, and that was a very rewarding experience as well. Last summer, I attended an institute for 5 full days where I became the trainer in explicit instruction, which truly reflects how teaching and learning should be happening, and truly measures if what the teachers have taught is what was learned by the students. Coming back, I rolled out this program in the district with all administrators in the district read the book by the author, and the coaches are receiving bi-weekly training on this specific framework of instruction. So why do I recount all of these experiences? This is why I'm sitting here today. These experiences truly primed me to be able to serve and scale these specific experiences at a larger scale in the district. I do know what it takes to transform schools. As a superintendent, I would now have the agency to lead a team to be able to transform the district. Thank you.
The next question, based on what you know about our district, what do you believe are the 2 or 3 most critical long-term priorities we must address? And how do your background and skills position you to lead that work? And always feel free to ask us to repeat, no problem.
Thank you. Serving as a school improvement director and leading administrators in buildings into this process and the process of developing comprehensive needs assessment, which stands for looking at data. I mean, it means looking at data and lifting from the data, multiple sources of data, what challenges we have and also what successes we have. And after we go through this process, we celebrate successes and we sustain them. And the priorities definitely are going to be the basis, the root cause that would help us develop our goals. So how do we know our priorities? From the comprehensive needs assessment. This is a process that we have led and we continue to revisit for the MyKIP process, which is a district improvement plan, for the strategic plan, and we did also for the fielding study. I took a leadership role on the fielding study, and I truly had a good experience understanding not only the infrastructure needs, but also from all aspects of the district, I was able to identify some needs, which when we refreshed our strategic plan, we used those as part of the comprehensive needs assessment as well. So based on all of this data that we've collected for different purposes, and this is really the art of developing plans. You do not only look at one metric and base your goal and judgment on it. You need to validate your gaps through different metrics in order for you to ensure that this is truly is the gap. We call that triangulation of data. So we know that student achievement, everyone in the district almost knows that performing at 46% on proficiency in ELA and 39 in math, we know that this is a gap, and we know that this is a priority gap, and we need to have a sense of urgency and develop plans and move forward with this. I have experience in this work. It's tried and true for me. I have done it when I was in a leadership role in a school. And again, we can continue to develop frameworks and systems across the district and tie accountability to all of these systems through recursive process of monitoring, evaluating, and adjusting all of the actions that we are taking on the ground in the schools and in the buildings. The second priority is facilities and infrastructure. And again, our aging buildings, the infrastructure needs, accessibility for students in terms of special ed programs, in terms of early childhood centers, innovative learning environments. All of these we know are needs that really touch on equity. I would say the third one is truly equity, because many of our families desire or wish for their students to attend specific programs, and we have caps on those. What can we do to improve these specific offerings and make sure that students who wish to participate in these programs and are qualified, they get access to these programs? So when access is not available or limited, truly it's an equity issue. And having a bond that would take care of all of these needs would be removing these barriers for students. I believe that we can do this, and as a leader in the district, at the helm of the district, I would have the agency to lead teams into ensuring that all of these programs implemented systemically and access is guaranteed for all students, regardless where they come from or what schools they are from.
All right, the next question. Tell us about a time when you led through a crisis or significant change. What decision did you make? What was the outcome? And what did you learn that you would apply here?
As leaders in buildings at the district level or as a superintendent, we always face crisis, and this is inevitable when you're at the helm of a building, a leader, or as an executive director. I deal with crisis situations all the time. I get called at midnight. My husband can tell you. He tells me, put the phone away, and I tell him, what if they call? So anyway, I got called by one of the high schools, and there was a threat. I typically get these phone calls right away, and then we have to make a decision on the spot. We have to be fast and quick on how to deal with these situations. I follow a process for decision making. I have learned from a colleague, and it's called the 1 to 5 decision making process. It truly helped me not only in emergency and crisis situations, it helped me also as I work with the coaches, counselors, principals, and all of the leadership teams in the district. Because when we develop processes, we need to make sure that our decisions are grounded in partnerships so that we can support teachers and staff, and they can in turn be committed to the process. So for that specific situation, I right away went to the building. It was early morning. And we contacted the safety and security director, of course. It has to be a small circle because you need to act quickly. And we involved the law enforcement for sure. And definitely when these situations happen, you have to take into consideration all the elements and the protocol that we develop as part of the emergency management plan. Everything that follows a process and a system can only improve. You will not fail when you have a process, a protocol, and a system. Since we had a process on how to deal with this crisis situation, right away we went to the steps. We right away informed the board for sure, because the board doesn't want to, we don't want to surprise the board. They are the first ones to be informed. Parents will be communicated with, but again, through the protocol, there are steps. So this was the crisis we dealt with. We followed protocol, but the one step that we took it further is debriefing after the entire crisis ended. And through debriefing, a form is sent to the staff also to get their feedback on what went wrong. Did they hear the message? Did we communicate with the families on time? I know that there are going to be some stakeholders who are not going to be pleased how the process went, but the first and foremost factor that we have to consider there is the safety of the students and the staff. And that's how we deal with the situation. As a superintendent, I would ensure that these processes are standing items on the agenda, because we always need to revisit them, we need to update them based on current development, and ensure that safety and security of staff and students is front and center. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Ms. Faraj.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We've been telling other people welcome to Dearborn. We've been telling other people welcome home, but for you, it's just welcome because you're with us all the time, and we're so happy to see you here today.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you 4 questions about district relations.
Okay.
My first question is, please share with us how you have gone about building and maintaining successful relationships with all members of the school community. Specifically, share an example of how you built a productive relationship with a resistant stakeholder group.
school community, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. Please share with us how you have gone about building and maintaining successful relationships with all members of the school community. Specifically, share an example of how you built a productive relationship with a resistant stakeholder group.
Okay, two parts.
Yeah.
First part is successful relationships with all members of
The school community.
Okay, school. I'm going to use the Maples example because truly, when I walked into Maples, it was about 680 students, and parent attendance in monthly parent meetings was averaged 4 to 11. That's what I was told. I positioned our support staff and our MTSS team and the parent community liaison to form a committee for parent engagement. And I called it parent engagement, not parent involvement. And that was intentional. Because I truly believe that it takes a village, and I don't want any stakeholder group missing from the group that's there to support the child. So we mobilized all of the support, and based on the data at the time, we figured that the teachers can't do it alone. We cannot do it alone. So we planned a program for parental engagement where it became more of an educational program, academic and effective. Topics on the agendas were SEL, social emotional learning, wraparound services, and we would bring partners to present to the parents. Diversity and tolerance and empathy, where I would bring speakers. I brought a Jewish speaker, I brought an African American, a Middle Eastern, from all races, because students would come to the school and use language that's not tolerated by us and by the families. So these are topics that we truly presented them on a monthly basis, and parents who didn't show up to the meetings were asking if they could come back and we could briefly go over the content with them. It continued that way for the 6 years, and the average attendance in every parent meeting was from 200 to 350. And every single month, the parents took something with them home. If it was MSTEP, it was MEEP in the beginning, and then it was MSTEP. If it was an MSTEP report, they sat in groups around tables, and facilitators went around and explained how to read that report. If it was their reading level, they would take a laminated card with them home, and they would put it on the fridge, and they would see where the benchmark is, where their kid is, and they took materials with them home. So these are the strategies that we've implemented at Maples that attracted the parents. We did build the positive relationships with them, and not only with the parents, also with the staff and with the community. So this was the successful strategy of attracting parents and families and community members to support. In terms of a resistance group, it happened here while I was serving as an executive director about 3 years ago when we developed the early dismissal Tuesday calendar and protocol. It was not received well by all stakeholders because that threw the parents off on a tangent in terms of securing daycare for their kids, changing schedules, and also teachers needing the clarity in protocols. So there are too many factors. It's not that we went in without plans and systems. We did, but we're going to still face resistance. So as a team in central office, we secured daycare or extended care for the children who were not picked up. And we continued to do that until the parents were okay and they did not ask for that specific service anymore. In terms of the protocol, we do a survey on an annual basis, and survey results show that teachers' perception and not necessarily feeling, they really provide evidence that the early dismissal time is supporting them. It is helping them in collaborating on student data plans, designing their teaching and examining their learning and learning from each other. This has been a successful protocol, but there was a resistance group, more than one group throughout the process. And we continue to monitor it. Just this year, based on a survey I administered in June, and I had over 500 responses, we revised the protocol, the executive team, and we called it the PLC Simplified Protocol based on the teacher feedback. Again, establishing systems and processes, hearing your stakeholders' voice, especially relevant stakeholders who are impacted by the initiatives, will lead to desired practices and desired results.
Okay. My next question is, give an example of community leadership you provided outside of day-to-day district duties. How did it benefit community support for the district?
I have served on several groups outside of the district. First one was by appointment by former Brian Whiston, late Brian Whiston, on the Michigan Integrated Continuous Improvement Process when that specific framework and platform were designed. Then I served on a task force with MDE to streamline all of the platforms that they have. This was a couple years ago. And give feedback also. I came back and collected feedback from our departments because we have different departments using different platforms, and I shared this experience with MDE. Accreditation is the company that accredits our district. It's a global organization, and they accredit other schools across the nation, and again, globally. I have trained as a team leader with accreditation company. It's called Cognia, and I also trained as a team member. I went with them on different visits to different states and different schools in Michigan, also to accredit. That's how I participated as a team member. I never led an accreditation myself, but I participated as a team member. And as a result of this engagement, they asked for me to serve on their Midwestern Regional Committee. And they change their standards every 5 years, and this is specifically the committee I served on to give feedback and also give feedback about their different products. The local nonprofit that I served on is Access, and it was a mental health grant where they needed a committee of different stakeholders, including law enforcement, the police chief, and not only from Dearborn, from different cities. That was a great opportunity for me to meet and make connections with different stakeholders from different cities and departments. Also, through that specific committee, I was able to secure resources for our counselors. I work with the middle school counselors, and I invited guest speakers, and we connected the service with the students. So again, I do not shy away from serving on committees, especially in the city of Dearborn if I am asked. I know that if you look at my resume, you will see like the responsibilities, but as a superintendent, definitely I will be out there serving on all of the committees that are available and they could help our students. Thank you.
Okay, and before I continue, you've answered 5 questions so far. 17 questions remain, and then there will be a time for you to ask questions and to give a closing statement. For all of that, we have 60 minutes remaining. Okay?
We'll go faster.
I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
Our next question is, how do we create a district-wide culture of continuous improvement, aligning our actions to achieve strategic outcomes?
I believe that continuous improvement happens when alignment is in place and systems are solid and implementation is done with fidelity. And then there's a monitoring, evaluating, and adjusting process that's recursive, that's going on a daily basis in buildings. If we fail at any of these stages, we do not see desired results. And that is based on the continuous improvement process. The Michigan Continuous integrated continuous improvement process requires that we look at the whole child, not only academic and affective, meaning attendance, behavior, social emotional needs, wrap-around services, subgroups. If we are not monitoring all of this in the building, our continuous improvement process will not produce, or goals at least, they will not produce desired results. And the reason MDE called it continuous improvement process at the time we developed my KIP was because we do not want to have a plan and put it on the shelf, submit it through the platform, and start a new one the following year. It is continuous for that reason. Goals do not end at the end of the year. Goals must continue, and the progress must continue in order for us to have continuous services and continuous monitoring of students' learning. So again, this is really up my alley. This is the work I do day to day. All of the processes I lead and the systems I manage to create with teams are based on this specific philosophy. And I always work with principals, and I say to principals, it's as good as you make it. It's as good as you monitor it. And giving that feedback on a daily basis to teachers. In other words, we have to carry the actions on the ground that we put in the plan. Like my staff used to tell me, like, should we have this in the school improvement plan? And I would say, if we do it on the ground, day to day, let's put it. If not, let's take it away. And especially when we had visitors who are gonna look at our plans. So we have to be very realistic about fidelity and integrity of implementation. And when goals and plans fail, it is not a failure of theory, because we do not select strategies and activities that are not research-based. We always make sure they're grounded in research and supported by evidence. But when they fail, it's a failure of practice and not a failure of theory. And we make this very clear, and this is where the accountability kicks in. What is happening to prevent us from achieving our goal? So I try to summarize this. Is that good?
Our next question, my last question for you, is how have you obtained and utilized stakeholder feedback to modify district priorities? Provide a recent example and the impact it provided.
I believe that plans, whether they're continuous improvement plans, building school improvement plans, or strategic plans, they are not built for people. They are built with people. They're built with our stakeholders. Since I started overseeing the strategic planning process, and every time we go through the process, we invite Michigan Leadership Institute as consultants to support us with this process. I managed to bring in over 60 people from the community, the district, involved Henry Ford Community College, Wayne State representative, and last time I brought in an MDE representative on the committee. We seek people from the city of Dearborn, community leaders, and we truly have a very diverse group serving on this plan. It is very exciting to watch how the plan is evolving, even how the students' first sign came about. I still recall one of the principals sitting in the back there, and she just came up with a student, why don't we shorten it? Like we were going back and forth, and she said, why don't we shorten the vision so that it's memorable? So again, they own it when they are part of developing it. It is very important to include stakeholders in any process, because if you want them to live the vision, you need to engage them in developing that vision. And day-to-day work must be reflective of the mission and the goals and activities of the plan. So this is one of the areas where I ensure that we examine who the relevant stakeholders are and make sure they're sitting around the table so that we can get commitment. I like to call it commitment rather than buy-in, because with commitment, they're going to implement. With buy-in, it's just like they'll agree to and have consensus. As a superintendent, I will take this further to the next step. and ensure that the process of recursive monitoring, evaluating, and adjusting is in place for all of us, our goals, strategies, and actions, so that we can see the desired results at the end. But I will do that definitely with an adequate level of support for administrators and staff, with empathy, and also making sure that all of them are part of the decision-making process.
Ms. Faraj, welcome. I have 3 questions for you on political awareness. As our superintendent, how would you advocate for political action that benefits our district and public education throughout our state?
As a superintendent, I am definitely going to be front and center in terms of advocacy, but I tend to read a lot about scholarly articles and books, but also reading for pleasure. But sometimes I read on non-instructional literature or programs, for example. One of the ideas, I subscribe to different magazines. That's how I came across this. One of the areas that we must be very cautious about and conscientious of is that when we need advocacy or we need the support of the community, it's not as productive when we go to them at the sense of urgency when we need it. It's much more impactful if we are proactive and we develop, for example, maybe a task force, an advocacy task force in partnership with community leaders at the county, at the district, at the city, and at the state level, even at the federal level. If we have a standing committee with agenda topics that are from both sides, from their end and from our end, and then when we need them, we have that committee in place to help us advocate. So that's one of the ideas that I would definitely pursue as a superintendent. And my work with advocacy, because I secure grants for the district, and these grants are not necessarily from the state, from the Michigan Department of Ed, they are from the State Department of Ed. And securing $14 million, definitely I had asks as part of these grants. One of them was the allowables. Another ask for me was the sunset of the grant. It was gonna sunset 2 summers ago, and we still use it today. So and our former superintendent, Dr. Glenn Maleko, truly engaged us in advocacy groups and advocacy meetings. So I got to meet Al-Abbas Farhat and Sylvia Santana and others, and I sat on their meetings with Dr. Maleko and separately, like when I needed them. Also one time with Ms. Faye Turfy, because she oversees also the Grow Your Own. And we truly communicated our needs, and that produced some desirable results. Not all that were asked for, but it helps. So again, I will not shy away from these advocacy groups or looking to advocate for our kids regardless of what it takes.
Superintendents are often faced with making decisions when there is no clear right answer and the community is divided. Please describe a time when you faced such a decision, including how you approached the decision-making process and how you worked to build understanding and support for the direction you chose.
So I believe that every initiative or every decision that comes our way, we are going to see people who are pleased with the decision and others who are resisting the decision. When we decide on a specific initiative or action that we're going to take at the district level, as long as it's grounded in what's best for students and it's aligned to the strategic plan, we provide the necessary support and include stakeholders, the relevant stakeholders around the table in the community, in the a committee, if we have a committee. Sometimes we can't have a committee because it would be an urgent matter. It depends on the urgency and also the relevance of the situation. So in these cases, what we do, we make the decision because it's for the best interest of the student, and we also include the stakeholders, and we provide support. We cannot just make the decision and run without the support and the clarification. So clarity, communication, and also bringing people together is key, and also continuing with the decision and being decisive is important because it is what's best for students. I have a perfect example for that, where I scaled an initiative for all middle school students a couple years ago. It was called Acceleration, to target students who are not reading at grade level. And I did face resistance, proceeded with a decision, provided support, collected feedback on a regular basis, and now it's in full implementation. I will stay decisive as a superintendent, go by our decision, and depending on, I explained the decision-making process before, this truly helps me decide who is around the table and what level decision I should be making. There are times when, as a superintendent, I have to make a decision that's level 1, meaning that I make that decision. There are times that it's a level 5. I just delegate that decision. And in between, it's always a collaborative effort, depending on relevance, and also who's involved, and time, for sure.
What impact do standardized testing requirements have on teaching and learning in our state?
Standardized testing is a controversial topic. We know that. Some people are for it, others are against it, and some people are in between. We know that. Standardized testing is used, and if I can repeat the standardized tests that we have in the district for the public, if they don't understand that. MSTEP, which assesses reading, math, science, and social studies. We have WIDA, which assesses language skills. We have PSAT and SAT, which are the 8th grade and the high school assessment for proficiency, again, math and ELA. I believe that when standardized tests are used well, it does bring clarity, accountability, and also a direction for schools and buildings. However, the test itself I don't believe the test provides for equity, especially for students who've been in the country for as long as they pass the 1 year, they are required to take the test, and they're not ready to take the test. And language skills are not developed and proficient to the degree where they can read the test and pass it. But in these cases, they measure their growth versus their proficiency, but they still report a proficiency score. Again, for people who are against, these are the arguments that they have. It is used for our accountability system, not only by the state, by the federal, by ESSA. ESSA stands for Every Student Succeeds Act, and this is from the from the U.S. Department of Education. And we are required to participate in the test, not only participate, above 95 participation rate by our students. So this is my take on assessment. I believe that it's a good measure of students' performance compared to other students in the nation and in the states. It gives us an idea. It also, when analyzed in a thoughtful way and intentional way, it can give us a direction on how to align the gaps with our existing curriculum resources. But when it's used for test prep, this is where really schools fall short. And this is poor usage of standardized assessment time. So we need to be very conscientious as building and district leader in terms of utilizing the reports that come through after they take the test and align them with their existing resources and curriculum to understand their direction in terms of pacing the curriculum and the standards for the grade level. I will definitely continue. This is an area where I have used heavily in my building when I was a principal and with the principals now at forums. So I bring the reports and we analyze them and we read where the gaps are and how to go about that and how can we supplement to make sure our students do not fail in these specific sub-content when they take the test.
Good evening, Ms. Faraj.
Good evening, thank you.
Long time no see.
I know.
Please describe, my category is leadership attributes. Please describe your typical leadership style and share how it is effective for those that you serve.
My leadership style, I am known to be calm and patient, and I lead with empathy and really adequate level of support. That is not in any way, does not in any way indicate that I do not have high expectations. One of the comments I hear from people is, you get us to do the work seamlessly. I heard this a lot when I was a school principal by teachers, and I hear it from certain principals, is that I embed a lot of coaching through my leadership style because I support principals when they need the support. And when I provide professional development to coaches from 6 through 12, they can attest to this because I always tell them that you need to be very conscientious of where the teacher is and what type of training they had, because you are receiving the training. The teachers are not at this level yet, and you need to make sure that you go in there, demonstrate, and give them the sense of safety. This is truly my leadership style, but when I have the agency to lead a department or a school, or potentially if I get the position as a district, I will definitely tie in the accountability piece that we need to see desired results. And if we don't, that means implementation is suffering. So the leadership is tied to accountability, because if you do lead with passion, with empathy, and with an adequate level of support, and accountability is tied to it, this is what our schools are about. This is really the goal of our of educating the students and making sure that the portrait of a graduate prepares our students to be career, college, and life successful individuals.
This is the 12th question. What is the most difficult decision you've made in your educational career? Describe your decision-making process.
Decision-making process, I touched on it briefly before, which is engaging those who need to be around the table and deciding who is going to be around the table, because those who are impacted should be around the table and should be guaranteed to be around the table, I would say. The level 1 to 5, most of the decisions we make as instructional leaders are between 3 and 4, where we engage stakeholders, we get their feedback, and we collaborate on a decision. This is my style of decision making, and I'm sorry, what was
What is the most difficult decision you've ever made in your educational career?
The most difficult decision where I faced a lot of resistance and I had to employ a lot of strategies in order to amplify the support was the acceleration initiative in middle school. Every single student is getting 1/2 hour daily for twice a week for math and twice a week for reading. And this is repeating the standards that they have been taught in core classes. We call it double dip or tier 2. This was implemented and scaled across all middle schools by all teachers. It was all hands on deck. We call it all hands on deck, meaning that the language arts teacher and the math teachers cannot remove the barriers that were formed throughout the years. If your students are 3 and 4 levels below, the language arts teacher's responsibility cannot be expected to be that teacher by herself or by himself will remove that barrier or will accelerate the student. So that approach of accelerating students with all hands on deck is even like giving those teachers who are not language arts and math teachers an idea of where these students are, and they can differentiate for them in their core classes. This has been a wonderful structure and system. And really, I focus on systems, because if we don't systemize and evaluate and get feedback, we do not know what's falling apart. So this has been a tough one, in addition to reducing 8 FTEs in 1 year, because I oversee staffing for middle school. And to be fiscally responsible, we had to go by that specific area of reduction.
My last question. How do you inspire and engage the entire school community in support of the district's vision and mission?
Engaging stakeholders and the entire school community with a district vision is truly living that vision, living it through our day-to-day actions and our day-to-day, not necessarily day-to-day plans, the plans, how we interact with the community. We always say, and I use this with administrators a lot, promises made, promises kept. And if they're not kept, we need to explain why. How do we communicate with our stakeholders? How do we engage them? Do we deliver what we say we're going to deliver? So our initiatives and communications and actions should not be sporadic. They should be systemic. They should be following a structure, communication with clarity, transparency, and ensuring that they are part of that process. I explained how the strategic plan refresh took place before, and I always continue to engage them and also align my actions to the vision, and this is the vision of the board. Our task is to execute that vision. So if we're working as a team and engaging stakeholders, living that vision and delivering our promises, I think that's the best form of engagement of the stakeholders and the community.
Trustee D'Ambrosio?
Good evening, Ms. Faraj.
Sorry, Trustee D'Ambrosio, just to give an update
Yep.
on the time. You have 9 questions remaining, and then there will be time for you to ask any questions and for a closing statement. And for all of that, we have 36 minutes and a little bit left, okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
My questions will be on instructions and curriculum. Describe one program or strategy you led that narrowed the achievement gap for economically disadvantaged and historically underperforming students.
Dr. Archer, who wrote the book on explicit instruction, she's a practitioner and she's a researcher, says that the 2 most impactful elements that would impact student achievements are curriculum and instruction. This is the message I re-emphasized when I came back last summer with the administrators. At Maples Elementary School, when we developed structures, and those structures were intact, ensuring that students were guaranteed strong Tier 1 instruction at grade level, appropriate professional development for teachers, ensuring that special ed students' expectations were up to the grade level. Bilingual students were required to study with the grade level resources and standards and then get the additional support on top of it. Most often we intervene the special ed students and the bilingual students out of Tier 1, out of core, which truly contributes to over-referrals to special ed classes before we check our system and examine that Tier 1 is strong enough. So in terms of bilingual and special ed students at Maples Elementary School, because we employed these systems, we decreased the number of referrals significantly, because students, when they were tested, they did not qualify. They performed above what the threshold for qualifications. Bilingual students in one of the years toward the end outperformed the general ed group. because of the strong instruction in Tier 1. And we employed a double dip Tier 2. I'm trying to explain the terms so that I'm not using jargons. And that was guaranteed. Parents were at my door. Teachers struggled in the beginning, but through support and training, both parents and teachers were able to take this on, and we showed incremental increase in proficiency for all the students. Economically disadvantaged, now we call them multilinguals. They were bilingual back then, and special ed students.
Reading at grade level by third grade is a critical milestone for future academic success. What strategies will you support to ensure all students achieve grade level literacy by the end of third grade?
We know that literacy is the foundation for all future learning, regardless in what subjects. And we also know that in order for students to be proficient in third grade, we need to employ and implement a very comprehensive system of instructional delivery and high-quality curriculum resources. I just mentioned curriculum and instruction. I serve on the Governor's Literacy Summit. I was invited to serve by Dr. Glenn Maleko after he moved to Lansing. And when we attended the first meeting with the governor and a lot of stakeholders from the district, from the state, they hosted a panel from Mississippi Department of Education. And Mississippi is known to have moved from the bottom 10% of the states performing in the bottom 10% within 10 years to the top ones. And what Mississippi put in place are the things I mentioned earlier: strong curriculum resources, systems thinking, and systems implementation, structures, and guaranteeing Tier 1 instruction that's based on grade level, not intervening students, especially special ed and bilingual, out of Tier 1, not pulling them out of Tier 1, giving them additional support, because we know that when students need support, we don't take away the basic instruction. And again, the wrap-around services, SEL, and states that are trying to emulate Mississippi are not succeeding because they're not tying accountability to this system. So the training, the curriculum, the instruction, monitoring these systems, ensuring that accountability is in place. Yes, Mississippi's accountability is very tough, and some states are not taking this on, but they're not showing the results. So we have the same strategies in our district. They're not foreign to us, but we know what it takes.
Okay, last question for me is, what are the most urgent challenges for special education in our region, and how should these challenges be addressed?
The challenges, and not only based on my observations, but also based on the readings and the professional development we attend. When we attend PD and we service students and we lead, we do not only lead one subgroup, we lead the entire district, including all of the subgroups. So some of the challenges that I come across all the time through the field experience and also through the readings and the research is that funding is the first one, definitely, because of inconsistent funding leaves districts struggling with even securing the professional staff that service special ed students. Also, I am very interested in alternative to suspensions. I've implemented it in my school and significantly reduced suspensions, and I wish to see that at the high school level somehow. I always challenge the principal I oversee in high school to find a way to do that too. She should probably hear me. I believe that poor Tier 1 instruction is truly the most impactful element that truly impact special ed referrals, the number of special ed referrals. And if you read professional literature, you will see that like when we refer students, do we examine how impactful Tier 1 before we refer them? How strong is it? And did we provide the appropriate intervention before we even took them that route? So all of these impact special education. Alignment of the multi-tiered system of support. Multi-tiered system of support is what students do throughout the day in core, the intervention, and all of the wrap-around services. So we must ensure that all of these are in place and ensure that those barriers that come at us and the barriers that we ourselves create are removed in order to have successful special ed students and bilingual students and all students in general. Even gifted and talented, we need to make sure that we're providing for their needs to challenge them and move them to the next steps.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Ms. Faraj.
Good evening.
My topic is finances.
Okay.
Please describe your experience developing and managing budgets, including the largest budget you have overseen, and the strategies you use to maintain a balanced budget.
Uncertainty in funding truly puts districts across the state, I would say, in a very awkward situation. We are blessed in this district as executive cabinet members to work closely with our CFO to develop 3 case scenarios for budget: best case scenario, worst case scenario, and most likely. This truly helped us, and we allocate funding. We allocate FTEs, teachers and staffing. I do the middle school, and other executive directors do the different levels, and it makes the process very smooth for us when we allocate the staffing in June, because we don't have our budgets yet, but we use one of the case scenarios. If we do receive the additional funding, it's a smooth transition and seamless transition. So we add what we would like and not necessarily just have what we need. Like in the case of cutting 8 FTEs, that's an example. I manage a $14 million budget through grants. Not only do I secure applying for them and receiving them in the district, I really take an essential role because I like to, for example, the 23G and 23H, I use them for retired teachers and trained substitute teachers to push in the classrooms and support all the teachers in the district. Grow Your Own is to increase the teacher pipeline and get additional certified teachers. I just applied for a grant and just received it a couple weeks ago, $1.7 million for high quality curriculum resources for elementary. So I truly chase grants, and I receive a lot of grants in the district. That's my experience. During the ESSER funding, I really can say that I co-led the ESSER funding, the largest federal funding that the district received in its history. During the COVID for 5 years, it was, I believe, $137 million. What I did, I managed the continuity of learning plan. And that had to align 100% with the spending of the funding we received. So Mr. Wall and myself were continuously conversating about what are we using, am I collecting stakeholder feedback on the use of the funds, and am I posting on the transparency page, and do the dollars match our goals? And the continuity of learning plan was not instructional. I engaged the operational department, safety and security, the nurses, reporting the COVID numbers at times on a daily basis or on a weekly basis to the county. So truly, I branched out of instruction to the different departments in the district, especially during this 5 years, and also with the Cognia accreditation to ensure that we validate our departments when we apply for accreditation and they visit us and they validate like the resource capacity, the leadership capacity, and the learning capacity.
How would you ensure that our district spending is aligned with our priorities?
I believe that every dollar should reflect a focus area on the strategic plan. And this board requires and does a great job requiring that when you see the action items. they are aligned to our strategic plan goals and also to not only the focus areas, but also the goals and the strategies. I do the same for the MyKIP plan. In the platform, I submit the goals, strategies, and action items, and I make sure I align them to which budget we are supporting them from. Again, we need to ensure that they're always aligned. Otherwise, we're not tying or aligning our spending to what we truly are saying that our students need.
And my final question, what is your experience with millage renewals, bond campaigns, and sinking fund proposals? Share one campaign you led or supported and the factors that determined its success or failure.
I've served as a member on committees in the past in the millage and bond proposals for the district. The one that I was actively engaged in is the fielding study with David and Tom, where we brought the community together, student groups, support staff groups, teachers groups from the different levels, and community groups. Also, most recently, I scheduled a visit to Northville to look at their bonding process and what lessons they've learned, walked through the schools, and been part of the meetings for this specific bond, for the current bond proposal. And I am ready to roll my sleeves and go out in the community, unpack the jargon with the community, because typically this is really the issue. We ourselves need to unpack the language of bond processes. And I believe that we need to break it down as much as possible for the community. And my experience with these meetings and with the fielding, we do not have adequate rates of attendance in meetings. I believe that we need to follow the community members where they are, especially if it's summertime and fall. If they're at the park, we need to go there and present and talk to them. If they are at a church, at a mosque, we need to really seek community members to explain the process and get their support on the bond.
Good evening, Ms. Faraj.
Good evening. Thank you.
We are on question number 20.
Okay.
How do you work with building and district administrators to establish a high-performing team while balancing support, autonomy, and accountability? Provide us with an example of when you built such a team, including the specific steps you took to ensure its success.
With our administrators, I believe that leadership teams in buildings need to be aligned and need to be on the same page. When we learn processes and systems, we like to pass this learning to our leadership in the building so that they can lead their own teams. I led a team along with the assessment department and the curriculum department from the buildings. It's the administrators and all of their support staff and the assistant principals. And each building was engaged for 3 half days to learn and complete the comprehensive needs assessment process for their own building. So we scaffolded that learning at Stout Team Room, and they created their goals based on the findings they found in the comprehensive needs assessment. We walked them through going into the platforms, My School Data, the index system, and also the iReady data. And they were able to triangulate all of this data, find their gaps, develop their goals, and also strategies and activities. So this is truly like the steps to school improvement planning. This is how I managed really taking it slowly with them, and I didn't want only the principals to be trained. We wanted the support staff, like resource teachers, ELDs, coaches, like everyone was part of this process. Then they would take it to their buildings, and they would immerse their staff in it and share it with their staff. So that's one of the areas. I would encourage building capacities in buildings so that they're able to monitor their implementation and also tie accountability to it.
Question 21. How would you assess the culture and climate of our district, and what steps would you take as superintendent to positively influence and strengthen it?
When we do building walkthroughs and we develop our walkthrough tool, so all of the visitors can be looking for indicators through the same lens so that we can be objective. I have led a process of developing that tool in the past, and we would take a team and walk through the buildings to look for indicators of effective implementation. One of the areas on that tool in the learning environments was culture and climate. And how do we know, how is that measured? I believe that culture is a system. It should be developed like a system. And if we cannot measure its effectiveness, then we cannot see positive culture in the building. How do we know that there's a positive culture? What are the indicators? The way the students behave in hallways, the way the staff interact with each other, the way the students interact with each other. How does the school engage the parents, and how do they communicate with the parents? How do they use Parent Square, for example? Do they share assessment results? Like all of these simple actions that the school takes to ensure that these are like the simple actions are the climate really, and that's what builds a positive culture. So all of these indicators contribute to a positive culture. And when there's a negative culture, we know that it's lack of communications, a lack of a structure to taking care of behaviors in the building. So the actions that administrators, teachers, and us in central office take on a day-to-day basis would contribute to the district culture and to the building climate and culture. Are we communicating with transparency, clarity, and consistency is another area. Like how am I communicating with the board? Do I have a structure? Do I have a standing meeting with the board president? All of these areas contribute to the culture of our relationships at the district level with the board, with the community, with all stakeholders, and even the culture in the building, how administrators interact with staff, like the level of respect and all of that.
All right, your final question. How have you handled conflicts with labor relations or collective bargaining? Provide an example, citing your role and the outcome.
Serving at the district level, as a leader at the district level, and developing processes and systems, definitely these processes and systems impact union members, whether they're instructional or non-instructional. I think being proactive, I believe being proactive in terms of communication and engaging them in decision-making, even if they're not involved in the decision-making, at least communicate with the board president, because they would then communicate with their members. We have gotten into a practice of being proactive and engaging union presidents and union members. And oftentimes when I start on a process, I send a spreadsheet and I ask for 2 teachers per building, for example. This was one of the early dismissal protocol that we developed, and what would that 90 minutes look like? I engaged union members. Sometimes I will reach to non-instructional union as well. So this is the way to engage them, and I think being proactive is the best strategies to avoid conflicts and to avoid barriers in terms of implementing your plans. The PLC process on Tuesdays, I think, has been successful due to the fact that these decisions are made collaboratively. They're like level 3, 4 decisions, like their input is truly valued, and the feedback survey is another way where we tighten it and improve it for effectiveness.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for answering all those questions. We would like to take a few minutes now to provide you with an opportunity to ask any questions you might have for the board.
The question I have is what traits do you see in a good fit superintendent for Dearborn Public Schools?
Well, from my end, we're looking for somebody, we're looking for a strong leadership, someone that is transformational on a personal level, somebody that looks at our achievements and proficiencies to make sure that our kids are above the standard. We understand that the state has a level, and I'm not saying to go above the state, but at least to push the standard. We're looking for somebody with integrity, somebody that will do the right thing regardless, no pressure, no influence, somebody that would make sure students are our focus. So that's me, Trustee Muslim.
We were, I believe, asked that question before, and I said, we're looking for a visionary person, somebody who is visionary and also willing to take the board's vision and execute it at the district level. That's the only employee that we have, and we expect that leader to be transformational, as President Al-Jahmi mentioned, and somebody who is truly honest with us and will tell us everything that we need to know, even if we don't like that, not just what we want to hear. And to be obviously respectful, it's a two-way street, and stand with the board whenever we make decisions, even if we disagree on things.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We have 12 minutes and a half, just letting you know. Any other questions for us?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. So in closing, is there anything you would like to add?
I do have a statement I'd like to read, if possible.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Truly, I truly appreciate the time, thought, and care you've put into this process and the search for the college president. I really truly feel with you and what you've been through, and all productive work that you've been doing. I want to be clear. I am a leader focused on impact, forward momentum, and measurable results. I have served this district for 31 years. I bought additional years. So I have 37 years of credit in education. Those who didn't buy will always tell me, well, why didn't you tell us? I have served this district, again, with really to the fullest of my capacity and potential, not any less than that. I served across different levels of the system, from classroom teacher to reading specialist to instructional coach and bilingual resource teachers, also to an assistant principal and building leadership. I have not pursued titles. I've never done that. I have pursued impact, and I am here not for the position truly, but for the calling. I am here to serve this community and ensure every student succeeds in Dearborn Public Schools. If given the opportunity to serve, I will lead with clarity, with urgency, and a strong system of accountability that drives outcomes for every student. And when I say that every student, we have a saying in education, we say all means all, and sometimes we make fun of that like how is all means all, and we're not seeing the results that we want to see. Truly, I mean every student, across all backgrounds, abilities, and needs, including those receiving special education services and multilingual learners and our advanced learners as well. Because equity is not an initiative, it is the commitment to ensuring every student has access to the instruction and support they truly deserve and they need to thrive. This culture of accountability begins with a superintendent and cabinet and extends all the way to the classroom and each student and, of course, to the families. We need engaged families in our schools. I want to ground that commitment in something deeply personal. Our students walk into our schools with powerful stories. I've learned many of these stories through my principalship and through my feeder track support for families and students. Some are newcomers, others carry unseen challenges, but all bring resilience, determination, and a desire to succeed. As immigrants, many of us learn to value opportunity deeply. And I see the same strengths in our students every day. That resilience should be celebrated, but our responsibility is greater. We must build systems where students are supported from the start, I would say from preschool, because truly when we assess students in kindergarten, right away we see a gap, and we know why the gap exists. I will work collaboratively, listen intentionally, and lead with purpose, while ensuring accountability is clear, consistent, and paired with the right level of support for our staff. We cannot assume that our staffs can do this work by themselves. We need to scaffold that learning and support them day in and day out. I am proud of how far we've come, and I'm equally clear that we have much more work ahead of us. As we confront literacy, performance gaps, absenteeism, especially chronic absenteeism, aging facilities, and student well-being, our response must be coordinated, intentional, and system-wide, and it begins with us. Just as importantly, we must earn back the trust of the nearly 10% of resident students whose families are not currently choosing Dearborn Public Schools. That means deeply understanding what they are seeking and ensuring our results and our relationships and our reputation and our offerings reflect a system worthy of every child in this community. We must be aligned. When we operate in silos, we create inconsistency. My commitment is to ensure coherence, especially at the highest level of the district, so every school experiences clarity, consistency, and strong support. They should not see us as silos. We must be working together here in central office first and align our practices in order to see the effect of that in the building. My approach is simple. Assess honestly, act decisively, and build a system where expectations are clear. Progress is monitored and results matter, while fully supporting staff to meet those expectations. I lead with calm, clarity, and deep belief in people. I will build strong relationships, maintain transparent communication, and ensure a proactive, no surprises partnership with the board. This moment calls for focused and decisive leadership. I bring the experience, the perspective, and the commitment to align systems, strengthen accountability, and drive continuous improvement. At this point in my career, this role is about scaling impact through ensuring our entire system is aligned to meet the needs of every student. Because when we align opportunity with access and support, resilience doesn't just help students succeed, it allows them to truly thrive. Thank you. I am ready to lead.
All right.
I have
thank you.
5 minutes. Can I go back to the questions? I'm joking.
Yeah, go. So, did you say you want to ask a question?
No, I wanted to go back to the questions that I was short on.
Oh, no. We have to move on. So I want to thank you, Ms. Faraj. We appreciate your interest in the superintendent position for the Dearborn Public Schools. The board is interviewing 6 candidates this week. We will let you know after our meeting on Saturday, April 18th, where you stand in our search process. Thank you for your participation in this first round interview.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I really appreciate it.
All right?
Then, we have one more
No,
item.
we have, we want,
The next item on our agenda is, yes, of course. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Okay.
go ahead.
Do you need any help?
Good job.
Thank you so much.
I've written that much since college.
You're going to vote.
Thank you so much.
Let's put it this way. You're going to influence the vote.
All right, the next item, if I could ask for order from the chair.
Yep, order.
The next item on our agenda is the next steps in this process with Mr. John Silveri.
Thank you so much.
All right, so it's been a long week for you folks, and we'll try to move through this portion of the meeting as expeditiously as we can. But it's important that we talk about what comes next and then make sure that you're fully prepared for Saturday. So Saturday at 11, it's going to be the next decision you make. The first was to pick from your 23 applicants, and you selected 6 folks to interview, all highly qualified. Now, though, you've heard from all 6, and you need to narrow that field down. As we talked about before, there is no minimum or maximum number of finalists, but I would say most often what we see in these searches is boards tend to narrow that down to, from the original field, to 2. A handful of times I've seen 1, a few times I've seen even more than that, maybe 3, never seen more than 3. But really the goal for you now is to think about, having heard from all these folks and learn more about them, who, in your opinion, do you feel still possibly is that right person to lead your district? You don't have to be totally convinced yet. There's more to the process that will help reveal that. But there needs to be some separation at this point. So for you as an individual, it comes down to, is there one person that stands out and then there's a drop off to everybody else? Are there 2 folks that have kind of distanced themselves and there's a drop? Is there 3? And what you want to be prepared to do is come in on Saturday, and like we did before, you'll see this consistent throughout the process, we'll ask that each of you individually speak to who it is that you would like to advance in this process, and you'll be able to speak to why. The why can be important because ultimately, as a board, you're all going to vote on whatever motion is on the table. And so your why may help to inform your board colleagues and help them with that decision they face. It also is great for transparency so that the people are here, understand your thinking behind your decision. What's really important and that we always ask is that you limit your comments to those that support the candidates that you'd like to advance, and that what you don't do is go down the path of speaking to why it is that you would not like to advance somebody. So we never speak negatively about any of the candidates, but you're welcome to make comments in support of any of the candidates that you would like to. So what we'll do, as we did before, is we'll tally that for you. We'll kind of repeat back to you of all of the 6 folks, how many each of you named. So what sometimes makes it easy, doesn't always happen this way. With 6 people, the vote can be very divided. What sometimes happen is that there may be a couple of people that really stand out, where 4 or more of you have already named them. There's already a clear consensus on the board for those folks. So it's easy then to go ahead and make a motion to second. Of course, you can have further discussion on that, but then go ahead and take a vote. It might not work out that way, right? And it doesn't mean you can't have a motion for somebody who may have gotten less than 3 or 4 of you naming them. Maybe there's 3 of you that name that person. The vote could be very divided, so there's going to be a decision to make. But ultimately, it'll take somebody to put a motion on the table that you can second and then discuss further. It's not out of the realm of possibility, we've seen it before, that a motion can fail, in which case somebody would make an additional motion and we'll try for that again. I think the most severe example of that I've seen with the board is it took 4 motions before they had a successful motion to pick finalists, which is fine, right? It's okay. This is a tough call to make. Again, you've got 6 highly qualified candidates, but you can't advance them all. You can't kick the can down the road. Ultimately, and relatively soon, you're going to have to get down to 1. So the more that you can kind of get closer to that now and make those tough decisions that you're going to have to make, the better off you're going to be. Yes, sir, Mr. Czar.
Trustee Czar.
First, I resent you reminding of us of the difficulty of this. So when we do this on Saturday, since this is not a finalist selection, not a finalist not a discussion about one person.
Right.
There's no need for us really, when we're talking about who we'd like to advance to the finals, to rank those people.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
And what would you recommend? Would you recommend one way or the other?
Typically, we don't rank.
At this stage?
At this stage, we don't.
But maybe at the obviously on May 4th, we might say...
That's the ultimate ranking
right,
at
that's
that
my
point,
favorite,
right? That's right.
And then I know that when we did the 6, we did it in one motion. But now that we're getting to this stage, would you recommend, and the names are public anyway,
Yes, they
would you
are.
recommend that we motion each person separately?
I'll tell you why it is that we don't recommend it. And I'll tell you this too. Our job is to recommend, to advise. Ultimately, this is your decision as a board, right? The reason we recommend that you do it collectively instead is you put yourselves in a tougher spot. Again, you've got some very highly qualified people, and they put their best foot forward and kind of stuck their necks out, right, to apply for this. If you do it individually, it puts you in a position to have to individually perhaps actively vote no on that person, and that puts you in a tough spot versus you have a motion on the table that includes potentially a couple candidates, 3 candidates, and you're voting on that collective motion. We find that works pretty effectively, but that's our rationale behind it, and ultimately I would defer to you folks.
Trustee
And
Pavlikov.
I will say, because I've been through this process numerous times, that was the reason we don't want to be voting no on one and yes on another at this stage. And so we never pursued it individually. The only time you're voting, you want to continue to keep voting yes to move it forward, including when you get to your final choice.
I do have a question, and I agree on collectively voting for them, but if there's a situation where, let's say, 3 people were chosen, there's a motion, and 3 people were chosen, and someone agreed with the 2, but not the 1, it makes it difficult to approve. How would you handle a situation like that?
Obviously, you're going to be voting on whatever motion is on the table. So if you're not totally in favor of the candidates that are part of that motion, of course, you have the opportunity to vote no. To whatever extent you'd like to during discussion to help your board colleagues, you could go down that path to say, this is why I'll be voting no on this motion. So it does put you in a position in that case where you may have to reveal that there is a candidate that I would really don't support advancing. That doesn't mean that you have to speak ill of the person, right? It could be framed more around the fact that I just really feel like the 2 people in the motion stand out from the group. And in my opinion, I feel like the motion should only include those people, right? You don't have to say anything disparaging about anybody, but you'd have to be a little bit more forthcoming about the fact that there may be somebody in the group that you don't support. So it could get to that. But certainly you have to vote your conscience, right? You have to vote for those folks that you believe should advance. It may not be universal. It may not. And I mentioned the example of where it took several votes, right? It can happen. We may be fortunate, and sometimes it does work out, that the first time through, there appears to be pretty clear consensus, and then it's full steam ahead. Yes.
Trustee Zar.
So I get the efficacy of both approaches. The only reason if we end up in a situation where motions with multiple names fail,
Yep.
and one of the names was somebody who was on everyone's list, so they're clearly getting through, they're going to get a few no's before they get through because they're part of a bigger. I'm just saying, if we end up in a situation where there's one person that was on everybody's list and a few other people that it's kind of like, why not just pass that one person so that's out of the way? And I guess we'll see what happens when it happens. And then you start talking about the other ones that are at the 4, 5, whatever. I mean, you might end up in a situation like that. I wouldn't like to see somebody who's on everyone's list and then gets an emotion with a couple other people that people are fighting over, keeps getting no's on a motion that they're on because they're on everybody's list.
I understand. So I would say this again from experience. If we have a motion or two that fails and it appears that we have a scenario like you described, we could always shift gears at that point.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, that would be a board decision. We would discuss that as a board, and if that's the direction you folks would like to take, by all means, we could do that.
Well, any board member can make any motion they want at any time, of course,
Very true.
as long as they're recognized by the chair, right?
Very true.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right.
Trustee Moussa?
As far as the videos of the interviews, I know they were taken down, so I can't recall if we said they're going to become available again for us to watch again.
David's shaking his head, so.
I was under the impression that after tonight, all 6 were going to go back up.
Okay.
That was
Yeah, I'd like to.
They were taken down in the meantime?
After they were live, yeah. They were set to private so we could not have the interview questions published.
Oh, none of them lived after
Yeah.
their
After-
okay,
after
I get it.
that
I understand.
night.
But they'll all live after tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
all 6 can be made public right after this meeting.
Yes.
I make a motion that we do it right now. Do we have to make a motion to that, or did we already agree to that?
Add something?
No.
I think we.
No, I mean, did we already agree?
I don't think, is there any opposition?
No,
There's no opposition to that?
No,
I just meant, I think we should do it.
This one has to end first.
We're still live.
Trustee Moussa and John, as far as the questions for the finalists,
So I need to go there with you folks. If there's any other questions about kind of that process for selecting finalists, let's do that. And then we do need to talk a little bit more about
okay, so
the
I'll goes
questions.
ahead.
yes.
I just have a quick suggestion for the logistics of how we do this. So I've noticed some things that maybe we could do in this next round that we didn't do in this round. I'd like to see if the question after it gets asked is on the screen so that maybe the applicant doesn't have to ask us to say it again. It's up there for the whole time when they're talking, and that it's on the screen of the stream so that the users and the public know what's being asked while they're watching a certain question. I think that would be really effective. It's easy to do, and it'd be really effective way to better communicate to everybody and to everyone in the room too. I mean, somebody might be answering a question and the people in the audience forgot what the question was a minute after. So I think it would be really effective and a more transparency and better if we put the question up there after the person asks it, and then it's also on the screen.
Sure.
On maybe on the bottom while the person's answering it.
Yeah, and
Trustee-
just to add, we were talking about it in between breaks, that was, and I agree with Trustee Zart, that it's really difficult sometimes to grasp the whole question. What we were saying is to really give them the questions in a paper format, but I actually like it better that way on the screen. Go ahead.
So to support the answer of, I would definitely concur with that recommendation. For an educational purposes, we are all different kind of learners. Some people learn auditorially. They can hear the question, they can remember it. Some people like me, I'm a visual learner. I have to see it. Seeing the question up there, I internalize it and remember it much better than when I hear it. So I think that's a wonderful suggestion, and we both agree at that.
In the past, we always handed them, they had a paper copy when we've done it before.
Yes, as long as you retrieve the question, the
Yeah,
sheet
they
from them
didn't
before
walk
they
out the
leave.
door with it, yes.
All right, we support that.
Yeah, on the screen.
David,
Yes,
were you gonna say
absolutely.
something?
David, is that a limitation?
I would ask that we get those questions before Saturday morning.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We're going to do it tonight, aren't we?
That won't happen.
Well, we
But
won't.
We're
We're not going to be asking the questions on
Saturday.
Saturday.
Not for-
We're
it
just
won't be
picking.
asked on
For
Yeah, we're
Saturday,
not asking
for the
questions on
finalists.
Saturday. I'm talking about next week when we do the
Finalists
two
and
finalists,
everything.
or 2 or 3
On
finalists.
Thursday.
Next week, Thursday.
It'd be Thursday.
Yeah, Saturday, we're not asking.
Saturday's more of a deliberation.
Yeah, Thursday.
But just to confirm, you can have him the questions before we do
Of course.
a day or two before we do the finalist interview.
Well, right, we'll need time to get the questions like we did this time
Sure,
printed and ready
sure,
for
sure.
you. So we'll certainly have them ready in advance, and we'll forward them to David.
Okay,
For that purpose.
great.
Okay.
So we will do that. So if I may, we'll be talking more. So on Saturday, the first order of business is going to be that votes selection of finalists. Then we'll talk about what comes next. So be prepared for that. But a little preview of that, and just in case you're bored after this week, here's some more things for you to think about other than the minor decision of who are you going to advance in this process as finalists. The other thing is candidates will do a presentation now as part of their follow-up interview. We talked about this a little bit before. You get to pick the topic. And again, what's great about it is not only you see their presentation style, but you see that the answers to questions are limited to, on average, anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes, right? So now we're talking about a 15 to 20-minute presentation, roughly, on any topic of your choosing. So if there's a particular issue that is really critical to Dearborn schools, and it would be beneficial to hear more from each of the finalists about that. If there's something in a candidate profile that maybe we haven't really revealed too much about yet, and you want to dive deeper there, whatever the case might be, it really could be anything. And I'm not asking you to decide that now. What I'm asking you to do is to think about that. We do need to make that decision on Saturday. So I will press you to come to a decision on that, because then after that meeting, when we call all 6 of the candidates to tell them where they stand, and we will, those that are advancing, we will tell them at that time what that topic is so that they have time to prepare for it and can get that presentation ready for the interview. So think about that. Be ready for that discussion on Saturday.
Go ahead.
It's the same topic for both, or is it a customized topic?
The presentation topic is the same for both, yes,
For both or 3?
or all 3.
Or whatever, sorry, for all the finalists.
For any and all finalists, yes, same presentation topic, yes.
And so we'll talk about that publicly in the meeting, so it's not a matter of secrecy. We're going to publicly say.
Not at all. In fact, again, right after the meeting, we want to know immediately so we can tell the candidates they have to have time to prepare.
Okay.
And so it's okay that that's public,
It's all public,
absolutely.
yes.
When they make these presentations, do they normally utilize any AV stuff, or it's just verbal?
They normally do.
Okay.
And what we do in terms of equity is we give them a deadline. By this day at this time, we need to have your presentation in hand so we can provide it to the district, so you can have it ready for them when they are ready to present.
And if I could interject, I mean, some questions could be deferred to Saturday, like specific to what's the next step on Saturday. I think right now we're more prepping up for Saturday.
That's right. No, that's absolutely right. There will be much more to talk about Saturday after you make your selection. That, though, I wanted to prep you for because you're going to have to make a decision on Saturday. The only other thing briefly to get you thinking about it, because it will be a quick turnaround on questions. So the way you're going to select questions is we're going to ask each of you to submit 3 to 4 questions to us as suggested questions to ask. Those questions can come from a variety of sources. They can come from the additional questions that are part of the big binder that we gave you. There's a lot more questions in there, and some unused questions from the first round that you had selected from. Again, you can go back to the candidate profile and say, is there something more we need to reveal about this? You can draft a question around that. You don't have to worry too much about wordsmithing. We can help you with that. When you know who the finalists are, some of the questions that you got from some of your constituents too might form the basis of questions. So, I mean, they really can come from anywhere. We're asking you to overshoot. We ask more in the ballpark. This time the target was 21 questions. We ended up with 22. This time, because of the presentation, we're saying 14, which would mean 2 for each of you. right? So we're asking you to overshoot, submit additional questions. There might be redundancies. We try to look for some balance. But then we're asking you to kind of trust us to go ahead. And once we have those, you would then end up asking 2 of the questions that you submitted to us. This is an important distinction now. In this round, you are able to ask questions specific to the finalists. The only thing we ask, though, for the purpose of equity there too, is if there's one specific question for one of the finalists, there has to be one specific one for the other. If there's 2 that are targeted specifically for a finalist, then there needs to be 2 for the other finalists or for both of the other finalists. If it's 3, there needs to be 3. And then the rest would be the same in the same order as by the same people. Does that make sense? So it can absolutely be now when you submit those suggested questions to us. And we're not asking you to do that on Saturday. I'm just getting you thinking about it because there's going to be a quick turnaround from Saturday by the time we have to get them from you. So you can start to kind of think about that now and possibly formulate some. You won't really be able to identify individual questions yet because we don't know who the finalists are yet, right? But I'm just letting you know in advance you will have that opportunity.
All right, Trustee Petlicoff?
No, they answered my
They
question.
answered. I saw Trustee,
I'm good too. I'm gonna wait until Saturday and ask the questions about that next
Trustee.
process.
Okay, I'll wait till Saturday, but
Yeah,
I'll have a lot of
let's
questions. on
wait
Saturday.
because it's,
Okay.
we're going to have plenty of time to ask questions unless it's.
Yes.
Unless specifically for prepping up for Saturday,
Yes.
then feel free to ask.
I do have one. Could we talk about, or remind me, please, when are we getting the feedback forms that were submitted?
They're already shared.
They are.
Live
They're
spreadsheet,
on,
yeah.
I just actually have one question about that, about the
Well,
Arabic form.
Yes.
Is that gonna be translated and shared with us soon? Do you know?
Oh, I thought we were
I'm
waiting.
looking at Joanne.
The link we have is to the one
To
that
the
people are filling out for
English.
English, but we haven't seen the
Oh,
Arabic
never
one.
mind then.
Okay.
I mean, whatever ones that
Are they gonna put them in Italian too? Manar to do translate, yeah.
I meant the translated.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
No,
John?
I'll follow up with them on that.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Good. So if there's no other business, we're going to adjourn the meeting.
All right.
You-
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.